listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the first Talking into Infinity episode of 2025. It is, of course, Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater-centric podcast. I am your host, John. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and cmsnetwork.com, and also the CMS Network Rumble page. We are at those locations normally every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are watching on YouTube, please do not forget to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. Without further ado, let me bring on my esteemed co-host, Mr. Brian Hendrickson. How's it going, man? You and I, before we bring our special guest on here, real quick, you and I are a couple of road warriors right now, man. We were up till 5:30 in the morning or something crazy doing gigs last night. Like,
oh my God, in horrible weather, driving to and from, and freezing temperatures to load in and out, which is always fun. So why do we keep doing this stuff at this age? Can someone remind me? Oh, it's the massive paycheck and the fame.
I came out of pocket about $300 to play that show last night.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're not playing in Lima, where the band's based out of. Like, it's a lot less pay. So I just let the guys split it, and then I came out of pocket $150 to have our sound guy like tweak the knobs.
Nice.
And then the band tab was supposed to be $100. Speaking of Billy Morris, too. Billy, thanks again for having us out, man. Billy is an awesome friend of mine, and his band was gracious enough to have us out at the show. And Billy went to grab put a mic in my face last night and banged it right off my tooth and chipped it a little. So that was good.
There's three sides to every story: your side, my side, and the tooth.
Look, the fact that Billy actually is like showing a little bit of remorse.
That's awesome, man.
But yeah, no, it was a total blast. And like the band tab was supposed to be $100, and they brought out a check for like $212 or something. I was like, well, so I paid that, and then I had my own personal tab. It was
I was
pretty
gonna
crazy.
say $100, you would blow through that in half a set, wouldn't you?
Oh God, yeah. I think maybe, yeah. Well, dude, speaking of pounding, like after the show was done, I know for a fact, I had 5 shots in a 10-minute span. I had 3 Rumplemans.
Oh my God.
A Crown Apple and a Jameson Orange, because people like, let me buy you a shot. Let me buy you a shot. Let me buy you a shot. It was just literally walking down the bar and people like, oh, I got us a shot. I got us a shot. Like, oh, it was so bad, man.
Your tolerance level is, if I say it's 10 times mine, that's probably low at this point.
I'm well practiced.
There's no way.
I'm well practiced. Yeah.
So yeah,
nothing a little Jaeger couldn't fix. Billy was one of those shots. Yeah.
I did 2 Jaeger bombs, but they were like, I figured that they were way more bomb than Jaeger, which was actually fine with me. And the only reason I did one was because we do Honeymoon Suite, New Girl Now, and it's kind of one of those forgotten songs for a lot of people, you know. Yeah. So I once in a while I'll be like, hey, if you can come up and name the artist for this song, I'll buy you a shot. So of course this person wanted to let's do tequila, and I'm like, I'm not doing straight tequila. There's just First of all, I can't stand doing it like that. A and B, knowing what I got to drive home in, you know, I'm like, there's absolutely no way. None possible. So I settled on a Jaeger bomb, and then this person, of course, later comes up, like, well, let me buy you one. I'm like, okay. So now we're even, basically, right, in that department.
Right. So, oh my God, that's awesome.
So yeah, and then I dropped like 30 in food or whatever, you know, and buying a couple other rounds. So yeah, I by the time I spent gas and I'm not.
Yeah.
So don't hit me up for a loan anytime soon off of that, what I made.
You'll be broke when we go to New York.
That's right.
So Kale tuning in. Great to see you, man. He says, hang on. I thought we were doing fuck. Now you're telling me we're doing a different kind of toot? He says, did either of you do a gorilla fart then? No, they don't make those at the bar, Kale. The gorilla fart for me, as much as I have fun doing shots, that is strictly for the fan hangout.
So, well, not to mention, it'd probably cost you like $17. I mean, you might as well just, if you really want to do one while you're gigging, man, just mix them up ahead of time.
I know, right?
Put them in, because if you get the top shelf on all 3 of those horrible ingredients, you've got to be in the $15 range.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah. So, all right, well, let's get to today's topic and our special guest. So this guy has been on the show several times, always an excellent interview and, co-host with us. He was most recently on with me. Brian, you were not available, but we did an excellent deep dive into Queensryche's phenomenal Empire record. If you guys have not checked out that episode, please do so. And after we got off air, he said, man, if you ever want to talk some Van Halen, just let me know. And I was like, twist my arm, dude. So, and then when he chose a record, he chose For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which, for me is just absolutely like one of the most seminal records of my life. I have so many amazing memories of it. And so I was thrilled to not only talk Van Halen, but talk Van Halen with him and also talk one of my favorite Van Halen records. You know him, you love him. He is our very good friend, Mr. Paul Logue, all the way from Scotland. How's it going, man?
Hi, guys. Happy New Year to you both. How are you?
Awesome. Happy New Year. Are you wearing the new, like, that kind of just came out, like the Van Halen, like, racing shirt?
I don't know if this is new, but I picked this up in I think I picked this up in Florida, of all places, a couple of years ago at some kind of $10 store. They had a run of a whole host of different rock stuff, and I thought I've never seen this before.
Yeah,
so I thought I'm going to grab it. So it's not. It's not the kind of brown that goes with too much. We would call this turd brown in Scotland.
Nice. Yeah, I was wondering if it was new because like they just released that on VanHalenStore.com. I saw it like a couple months ago. I was like, whoa, all right, man. So
I mean, I think the fact it's so kind of different was what I got. In fact, I actually got like a beige tan kind of Iron Maiden in New York. So it was Eddie scaling the Empire State Building, and I hadn't seen that image for oh my God, maybe 30 years or something. So I picked the 2 of those up. So that was pretty good. And change out of 20.
Right. Are you? I have to ask. Are you sipping anything? Because last time you were having a little bit of scotch, and I'm joining you. So.
No, I don't drink alcohol. So it was certainly not Scotch.
Okay.
No, it wasn't Scotch. I never liked whiskey, so I just have a tonic water with a lemon in it. So yeah.
Apparently, my drinking has reached levels where I'm imagining other people drinking. So,
well, that's normal. No, I used to be kind of alcohol free when I toured, and it was something that, as we came to do, especially when Eden's Curse really took off, the back-to-back shows, and I sing a lot of backing vocals as well. I really found when we were tanking the beers on the road that I couldn't actually deliver what we were singing each night. So I think for the next tour we did a tour in Germany, which was like 13 shows in 14 days. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be absolutely grueling. So each year I used to drink beers and whatnot, like the most guys. I love cooking, so red wine was a massive favourite. But I used to always do a dry January, so that's quite a common thing here in the UK, that people try to give your liver a bit of a rest, especially in Scotland. It's a birthright to drink heavily. And I was definitely one of those guys, socially, of course, So I used to do a dry January, and this tour was kicking off in February. And I went into the tour completely dry and have the fittest condition I ever was in, and did the tour and felt completely great, had no vocal problems whatsoever. And I thought, wow, that was really cool. Wonder what happens if I do month 3. And I then got to month 6 and I thought, I'm going to try a year off. And I did 2 years completely like that, and then had a beer at a festival once. And then I would say probably the last 5 years of my life, my body's been kind of debating whether to go back off it. So I will be 2 years in May, completely alcohol free, and again, no alcohol problems. Never was an alcoholic or anything like that. Just purely out of being fit and healthy, and I don't miss the hangovers. Put it that way.
Yeah, right. I'll credit, man. Like my band and I are doing a Biggest Loser. We're starting on Monday. And so this is basically my last weekend of like, the weekend partying. So, I've done it for months at a stretch and everything. And you're right. I mean, you feel great. I mean, and it's ironic we're talking about this, considering we're about to talk about a record where Eddie was pretty much smashed the entire time.
Smashed, yeah, and played some of the best stuff he's ever done. But there you go. That's the irony, isn't it? Yeah,
I know.
So there we go.
Let's start there, man. So you were the one that chose this record. So why did you choose For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge to talk about? You said, let's talk Van Halen. And I said, what record?
Yeah.
You said For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. So talk a little bit about why you chose this one.
Sure, no problem. I mean, cards on the table. So I would say, in fact, what year was this released? 91 or 92 or something?
91, yep.
91, okay. So, God, I was trying to do my mathematics here. I would be about 19 years old, I think, if my math is correct. Maybe not. I have to think about that. But I was certainly late teens. And I was in a kind of local band in my village, and I was constantly trying to look for better musicians. Had a really cool guitar player, and in fact, I found him maybe next after this. But I was always looking for really good people to move on and up the ladder. I'd kind of grown out as a local musicians, and the city was just so big for me. Moving into the city at that age, 16. In fact, I would be younger than that. I would be about 16. I'll work it out in a second. But I got an audition. We used to put adverts up in rehearsal rooms or music stores. So you literally, our Saturday used to consist of driving or taking the train into the city in Glasgow. And you would go around all of the record stores, the CD stores. There was 3 major music stores that sold instruments, but they all had these kind of classified big billboards where drummer looking for bass player and singer, blah, 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 heavy metal band looking for bassist, you name it. And it was great as a young musician to just go and maybe either pick someone up or join a band. And I saw an advert for a guy who listed Van Halen, some of the other bands that I listened to as an influence. So I connected with him. So that was my first early kind of foray as the songwriter, because in my old band, I gravitated to writing all the songs. And even though I was still the bass player, that was the thing that really drove me. Long story short, I met this guy in Glasgow City. We went for a beer together. So I was definitely old enough to drink, which is 18 in the UK. And we drove out to his house, and he had a kind of mini studio set up, and he put this on in the car, and I was a massive Mr. Big fan. So when it started, VH wasn't really on my radar. I knew of them, I knew of some of the bigger singles, but it wasn't a band that I listened to. And I think that was because people around me didn't listen to it. Nobody in school brought it in, just the age group that I'm in. And when he played this, I thought, oh, it's the drill song. And he said, no, this is a new VH album. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I heard Pound Cake, and I was like, what the fuck? This is fucking amazing. So it was really, I would say, the first Van Halen album that it kind of blew my head off when I actually heard it. And then going into Judgment Day, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is insane. So I went out to this chap's house. He'd played some demos. He was far too good for my band, let's put it that way. So he dropped me back off in town, and I went straight into the next record store and bought Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and headed home and just fell in love. And I would say I fell in love with Van Halen before I fell in love with Van Halen. But then, as a completist as I am, I went back the way and got all the Roth stuff, and I still have a soft spot for Van Halen. And then many years later joined a Van Halen tribute band. In actual fact, the reason I'm late is I found this. I was looking for this photo, see if you guys can see it. So that is the skinniest Michael Anthony you'll ever see, with the wig on.
Right.
So that was probably, I can't even think of the year, but that would be maybe 4 or 5 years before I formed Eden's Curse. So that was the band I was in before I joined Eden's Curse, but I was still writing songs for other artists at that time. But we did 4 years as a Van Halen tribute up and down the United Kingdom. We did a lot of great shows, and I learned about a back catalogue of 45 plus Van Halen songs on the bass. So for me, it actually lifted my bass playing up, and I'm a huge fan of Michael Anthony, and I've got a lot of feelings towards this record because it was the first one I heard. I guess it's like, Images and Words was the first DT album. Under Lock and Key was the first Dokken album I heard. Operation Mindcrime was the first Queensryche album I heard. And those for me are always the ones that blow your head off and get you into that band. And I find it quite rare in my experience, maybe you guys are different, that you start listening to a band and another album trumps that first one that you fell in love with. So this is the one that I will constantly pull out more than anything. And if I was to let someone hear it, we'll get to the kind of tracks on it. It's got my favourite ever Van Halen song on it, which I'll reveal as we go through the kind of rundown. But absolutely love it, and I absolutely adored playing most of the songs on this album as well.
That dude, I can't say it any better. Like this is kind of I can't say that it's like the album I discovered Van Halen on, but I think for me, this is the record. Like Van Halen was the band that got me to music when I was 8 years old in 1984. So by the time we get to 1991, I'm 15 years old, and I had actually, this is really the first Van Halen album that came out when I had started playing guitar and drums and bass. And so I actually was able to understand a little bit the musicianship on display instead of just being a kid going, okay, that rips. And so it was like there was a different level of appreciation for me with it. And like you, I mean Van Halen has always, I love Dream Theater, that's why we have the show, obviously, but Van Halen has just always existed on a level completely all its own for me. If I were to take down my green screen, I have all 4 Sammy records. I have 4 foot by 4 foot album covers on my wall of all 4 of the Sammy records. I've got the vinyl on the wall, I mean, you name it. Like Van Halen's everywhere down here. And when Pound Cake came out, I was, I'd gotten into OU812, which was cool, but then Pound Cake comes out, and it was like, the music video is what I saw first before I heard it on the radio. And again, as a kid, you're 15 years old, you're kind of doing the whole puberty thing, and there's all these like smoking hot chicks in the video. You're like, holy shit. And then Van Halen's kicking ass. You're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So, and I wore this album absolutely out. And I have, with most records that I listen to and I really love, I have very strong memories that are like just seared into my brain. And with this one, it was riding my bike from my house over to the next city over and going through the metro parks, which is like a park system that we have here in Northeast Ohio. And it's, I'm on the bike path, like all the trees and, riding past the lake, and got my Sony Walkman on, just blazing For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And I went through, I can't even tell you how many copies of this. Like I wore out original copies. I would dub it and go through that. Like, I mean, I know this album like the back of my hand, and it's like, I just remember riding my bike to the record store to get more records, but, and tapes and all that kind of stuff. But it was always it had to be a solid year just For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And, it's, like I say, I think that it has a soft spot for me because of the fact that, again, I could actually appreciate what they were doing, because as I started playing, I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. And you kind of start to realize, what is really, going on these records. And you start to understand that Van Halen is not just, it's not as simple. It sounds simple, but it's not. The songwriting is absolutely fabulous. So, Brian, what were your first impressions of this album? Because you're a couple years older. I mean, you're about Paul's age, so you were probably like 19 or something, like Paul was.
No, well, let's see, 23, I think. But
in fact, I worked out. I was 17, so I wasn't old enough to drink. So
okay,
I would have been sneaking into a bar with that guy at that time. So I was.
I remember like OU812, and I think I was a little let down at first on that. I really come to sort of appreciate it a lot more now. But there was a 3-year gap, I think, between these two albums, which kind of back then, I think kind of people had I'd sort of forgot about Van Halen just for kind of a brief moment there, because 3 years between albums back then was kind of almost an eternity. It was pretty much every big band was boom, almost right to the dot 2 years, just about. And I remember hearing that opening riff on Pound Cake, and I'm like, what in the world is this? Like, and then all of a sudden there's like, oh, it's a new Van Halen. And and I've just kind of dove into the whole rest of the album, and I was absolutely amazed. There's some comments in here talking about how this kind of combined the old Roth musical style best with what Sammy brought to it, and I kind of agree with some of those comments. I have a question for you, Paul, though. So you're the young kid that first listens to this back then. You're kind of growing as a musician and starting to learn.
Yeah.
Now that you're a full-blown producer, this kind of stuff has always fascinated me. When you go back to listen to this and just put your producer hat on, is it a whole new experience? Are you hearing things and going, oh, I bet they did it this way. I wonder how they did this. I think they might have done this. Do you kind of analyze things that way, or do you still just sort of enjoy it for what it is?
Oh yeah, you can do both with great simplicity, to be honest. I mean, I think many musicians have spent their entire career trying to work out what the hell Van Halen did, because I think there was a lot of magic in that room on the floor, and I think that's part of some of the mysticism around VH, was that they had their own 5150, and there's all these lost tapes that Wolfie's got where they'd endless and countless sessions of jamming. And I think Eddie was that. Certainly everything that I've read about him, he was that eccentric type person that just stayed up and experimented with sounds. I mean, they're all over this album in abundance, that things you're like, how the fuck did he come up with that? How did he even think of little things like that? And I think my transition as a musician at that point and hearing this record, John kind of touched on it as well, about there's a certain maturity that comes when you're a young musician. And for me, when I laugh about it now, what I used to do with records when people gave me them was, what's the song with the big riff? What's the big jump out? Like when I first heard Back for the Attack, it was Mr. Scary or something like that, or Under Lock and Key, what do you call it? Break the Chains, etc. I was fixated on the big kind of 80s riff, but by the time I started listening to this album, I then started to appreciate to what John was saying was the songwriting. So when I actually was cooking dinner tonight and I was writing notes, playing it in my headphones on a piece of paper, and when I actually looked back at my notes, I hadn't mentioned a single solo of Eddie's. And I think that says more about me, because I'm a songwriter and a bass player. I had more notes about the songs, the structures. And one of the first things that jumped out to me was that many bands do, when it comes to a guitar solo, they solo over the chorus section. That's the easy way out. Van Halen never seemed to do that. They seem to write completely different pieces of music. And okay, there's the point that their guitar player was just incredible. He could do fretboard gymnastics over absolutely anything that was there. And that he probably was the driving force around, hey guys, let's take it this way so I can play this. And I think that was one thing that really dawned on me, that you don't have to stick to that kind of rigid, right, let's solo over the chorus or let's solo over the main riff. Let's write a new piece of music. And it made me mature and grow up. And then you heard things like, we'll get into the details of it, but there's songs in here where the solo section's in halftime. I think, wow, that's cool. I never expected that. Or this one slows down, or there's a after solo breakdown section. These guys were absolutely masters at this. And I think this album's it could be a case study in just great hard rock songwriting.
I could not agree more.
And I still never mentioned any guitar solos.
I know. That's something like that I noticed, and we'll get to some chat comments here in a minute, and we'll do the track by track. But I mean, that I think that's one of the things that I noticed too, in going through and putting some notes down, and is that this album is so riff heavy and has so many interesting, like songwriting bits to it that, like you said, I mean, and it does have some of Eddie's greatest solos. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But there's so much else going on that there's more to focus on. It's just I think the word I would use with this record is dense. It's very dense. And one of the things that the band has said about this album is that they felt like when they looked back at this one, they felt like there was almost too much coming out of the speaker at one time. They felt like they were trying to, it was like the saying of like, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, whatever. But, they're trying to fit, 10 pounds of music into a 5-pound speaker. And they thought, balance, they wanted a little more space to it and everything like that. Cause they just felt like they jammed everything into, this one record. So, so we got a lot of great comments going on here.
Comment.
Yeah, it's but you know what? If you go back and listen to it, you can kind of hear it. Like when I read that a couple of years ago, I went back and listened to the record after, and I'm like, yeah, there's more going on here than on the other Sammy Hagar records. There's definitely a lot more stuff here. So, Mike's Musical Rehab, thanks for tuning in, man. He says, I feel like For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was the album they found who they were with Sammy. Good point. I actually have a point about that later.
Yeah, that was the one I was referencing. I saw earlier.
Yeah. Johan Alexanderson, great to see you, bro. He says they went a bit heavier, which fitted them. Yeah, this is, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but this is definitely kind of like a return to form after OU812, which I love OU812. I think it's a criminally underrated record, but this is definitely, I think, the hardcore Van Halen fans, when they heard this, were like, okay, yeah, let's do this.
Is this again. 2 for you, John? I know 5150, I think, was your 1, but is this 2 on the Sammy or no? Or did you ever officially rank them? I can't remember what we've done.
Yeah, I don't think we ranked songs, but I don't think we ranked the records.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't put you on the spot then.
Yeah. Believe me, that would be a bitch. Like that's like picking your favorite child for me. So, I mean, with the Roth records, it would be Fair Warning, and then in 1984, and then I have trouble. But the Sammy records, man, it's tough because it's really tough.
That's the JG3. That is the one there, actually.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. Yeah. Go ahead.
So JG3 says, yeah, it's the first album where it kind of sounds like old Van Halen music mixed with Sammy. It's like the music they played with Roth, but with Sammy's vocals. I would completely agree with that. Kale McLeish, he says, have to say, I agree that this album has my favorite Van Halen song on it, and it's not a likely choice. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what your guys' favorites are. So, JG3, John's even got a giant poster of Gary Sharon. Nice. Oh my God, that's awesome. So, all right, well, let's get into the track by track here. Oh wait, we've got one more comment here. I got to bring up my buddy Jonah. Jonah, awesome show last night, man. I love you. Jonah's one of the 2 guitar players in my band, and he and I are militant Van Halen fans, and he especially is a huge fan of the Sammy era. So he says a lot of that denseness was from Edwards' new tone. Yeah, definitely agree with that, dude. Yep. All right, so let's get into it here. So obviously, released in 1991, as we said. This was, as I just mentioned, I think a return to form, because OU812 was well received, but I think a lot of people were really turned off. Some of the hardcore fans that, the Roth guys that were into 5150 because it was still a rockin' record. I think they kind of dropped off the bandwagon with OU812 because you had stuff like Feel So Good and Mine on Mine. Like, it was a lot of synth stuff. It was, the lightest Van Halen album. I think we can agree on that. And I think For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was where they just we're a fucking rock band with a killer guitar player. Let's play some guitar rock and just kick your ass. And I think, it starts out.
The only thing I'll counter to that comment, John, is it ain't big bad as Sweet William now.
Well, yeah. Okay, so it is OU812 or Diver Down. I will give you that.
Yeah. I mean, we used to do Mine on Mine in the tribute band, and it was great to play. In fact, technically, it is a monster of a song, and that's a dunk 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 is a phenomenal piece of music. But yeah, I get the comment. It was very keyboard heavy, but I mean, so was 1984. Some of my favorite, I would probably say not my top Van Halen song, which we'll reveal is on this album, but maybe my second would be When It's Love. Just absolutely love that song.
That's
Absolutely
my
love it.
all-time favorite song, period. Van Halen, anybody.
Wow,
When Is Love is
phenomenal.
my all-time favorite. Love it.
It was
Yep.
one of those songs when I saw on the set list, I thought, oh, here we go. I
Yep.
just I went into my zone during that song. Great.
That's one of those songs I'm always so pissed off that I can't hit the notes to sing. I'm like, man, I would love to do it, but I can't. So Johan Alexanderson says first album that he used the Music Man's on, right? Yes, that is correct. Yep, this is the first post Frankenstrat record.
Is this the same producer as OU812? Because OU812 to me had a really warm, fuzzy feel, and this is like you said, this is like boom, right up the, quote Maiden, up the irons. This is like harsh and raw and in your face. And there was just
I can't remember.
Well, there were actually technically, in a way, two producers on this album. So they went in with Andy Johns because he did all the Zeppelin records and he did the John Bonham drum sound. So they wanted to get, Alex wanted the John Bonham drum sound. So they got Andy Johns in there. And Ted Templeman kind of finished it out because Andy Johns was just like a raging alcoholic. And so he and Eddie were partying it up and everything. And Sammy got all kinds of frustrated. And, in his book, he talks about the fact that, Andy was so drunk at one point, he erased an entire vocal. And so Sammy Hagar was like, fuck you, dude. And he called Ted Templeman in and then he and Ted kind of, tied things up neatly and got the record done. So yeah, it was technically two. It was mostly Andy Johns, but with, some assistance at the end by Ted Templeman. So, yeah. But yeah, so getting here to track one, I think as Paul, you mentioned, and I'll start with you, Brian. I think everybody, once they heard Pound Cake, I think this song is absolutely undeniable. When it kicks in, it's got that, Van Halen, I think one of the things that they do best is by the way, Kale, OU812, he says OU812 is a guy named Don Landy. Don Landy is the engineer. He's not the producer. So yeah, I think one of the things that Van Halen does best is like, I love when they do the quick boogies and stuff, and we'll get to that like on Pleasure Dome. But I think this just slow, monstrous, majestic groove type of thing like Pound Cake, it is absolutely just massive. And it's kind of an undeniable thing. I think it's an excellent album opener, and I think that it is an excellent way to introduce what this album is going to be about. And it just kicks in, and then there's just big chords, just giant chords, and so much melody, man. So much melody. It's just such a great song. And again, like the melodies are all there. It's just like, hey, here's what the new Van Halen record is going to be. It's all encapsulated to me here in Pound Cake. And super quick funny story, I'll get to you, Brian, but since my buddy Jonas tuned in, so my idiot guitar players, like one of our favorite things to do in the band, and you guys can appreciate this because you're musicians, is trying to crack the other guys up, see if we can screw them up and everything. And one of the things that these morons are doing to me now on stage, and I have to purposely try and not listen, they're doing the Pound Cake taps, like the do 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 do, doing those while we're in the verses of Play That Funky Music. And the first time I heard it, I couldn't get through the song. I was like, you guys are assholes, man. I was like, you sons of bitches. So now every time I listen to Pound Cake, I think of those numbnuts like doing that to me on stage. But Brian, your thoughts on Pound Cake?
Well, anything to get through having to play that funky music, whatever you got to do to get through that slog, for starters, right, Paul?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the first time I heard this, I was like, what in the world is that intro? I didn't know it was an actual drill playing guitar. And I love the descending riff. And right away, the perfectly splashy harmonics. I mean, he's just a master at that. And speaking of splashy, I wonder if Paul will appreciate this. Alex Van Halen, hi-hat, and John and I have been just multiple discussions on air, off air, and I'll probably keep singing in every song. I absolutely love Alex Van Halen's drumming. I think it's super important to the band. But like you said, it's one of those openers. Eddie Van Halen shows right away, hey, I'm the greatest guitar player really to ever do this style of music. I'll put it that way. You can debate all day long who's the greatest player. He is the absolute greatest at this thing that he does. And he can do it multiple ways. He pulls out every single trick of flavor in his bag right off the bat, sets the tone for the album, and it's just a huge mammoth rocker. And yeah, just a great song opener and a great reintroduction. It's been 3 years. This does not sound anything at all like anything that was on OU 812. It doesn't even sound like anything off of 5150 either in my book. It's a whole brand new chapter, a whole step forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The drill thing is kind of funny because when I saw the music video, like I said, I saw that first. I thought he was just messing around for the music video. I was like, oh, you can't play guitar with a drill. And then I saw the live show, and I was like, wait a minute, that's actually a drill. Oh my God. Yeah, that was again, Eddie doing Eddie things. And it's I mean, who the hell, thinks of, you know what? I got a power tool. I wonder what'll happen if I, mess around and play, guitar with it. Well, Eddie Van Halen. So, but Jonah is correcting me, by the way. I forgot about this the other night, and you'll appreciate this, Paul. He says, "Hey, John, I changed it up the other night and played Pull Me Under and during funky music." I forgot even like I forgot about that.
Now that's cool. I want to see that.
Those guys are masters of doing that stuff. But yeah, I mean, playing guitar with a drill, you're just like, are you serious right now? Like, yeah, it was kind of like Eddie just reasserting himself, like, yeah, I'm the greatest, and here I come. So
did he do it before Paul Gilbert?
I was, that I do not know. Kale McLeish says Gilbert did it first, but I don't think it had been as iconic yet. Yeah, I mean, and being honest, I didn't know that Paul Gilbert did it until you guys mentioned it in the chat. So,
yeah. So I'd heard Lean Into It first, so I naturally, as I thought, that's what the guy was playing.
Let's see here. Oh, we got a big comment. Let's see if it all fits. Robert Myers, thanks for tuning in, man. Hopefully we'll see you soon. He says, man, I'm sorry I'm missing this episode. Heading out the door, but I will say that For Unlawful is my favorite Van Halen album, and it's darn near flawless. They were firing on all cylinders. Perfection from Eddie and Sammy. And Alex, his kick is so fat and tight. Totally agree with that. Might be his best recorded performance. Mikey, do we really need to say anything else? Judgment Day and The Dream Is Over are standout tracks, and The Dream Is Over is sorely underrated. They were a firing deluxe version of this album. Is amazing. Yeah, couldn't agree more, dude. What are your thoughts on Pound Cake, Paul?
Yeah, well, I actually took my AirPods out because I wanted to demonstrate something on the acoustic bass. Can you hear this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that really stuck out to me as a bass player, and I talked about the influence this had on me as a young musician, was, and this song's a perfect example of it, was Michael Anthony's kind of use of the 16 notes, and it's all over this album. So, if you think of the start of Judgment Day, phenomenal, and it really is the glue. In fact, I actually didn't show you guys this. This is my Van Halen was the name of our band, which Halen is a Scottish word for the Highlands. So instead of saying Van Halen, it's Halen, and it's got my name on the back. So that's there. But
Awesome.
Pound Cake was just unbelievable for those type of 16s, and you've got that just blew my mind when I started to hear that. And naturally, as someone who then went on to study a lot of Michael Anthony's bass lines, it's all over his music. And to talk about the kind of breakdown in the middle section, so the solo was like, just absolutely masters at coming up with these little sections that just brought the song to life. So I mean, I think one of the first things that I thought was, you mentioned it yourself, John, or maybe Brian did, was how heavy it was. But even when you listen and deconstruct, you've got the heavy guitar sound, but those chords that he plays are super clean.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what you were saying. It's probably a combination of the multiple sounds put together. You even hear it when he does that.
Yep.
Then we've got another Michael Anthony octave there on the bass.
Yep.
He does this little. He goes something like this at the end.
Yep.
Been a long time since I played that, so I might be I'd have to study what he played there. But absolutely phenomenal song. Great kind of double entendre lyrics. I mean, who the comment I wrote in my notes when I was cooking today, who would have thought that lyrically home baking would have been such a topic for discussion? Like the British
the David Lee Roth honks are spitting nails right now over that lyric.
yeah, but I mean, again, very, very like Roth in that kind of instance as well. So it was keeping within, as people say, not just musically but lyrically. It was what kind of VH wrote about and recorded about and sung about, without being smutty. It was, very subtly done. What a song. The comment I'm going to make as well is, does anybody else like me think that its younger brother could be Seventh Seal from Balance? When you hear the way that song is constructed and played, and it's the opening tune as well, and it's got those 16s, it's like dun, 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 dun. It's almost very, very similar but phenomenal as well, another version of it. So yeah, I blew my head when I heard it in that guy's car. That was the song that I just had to have and hear that day. So I love it. Love it.
It's and I think it's like, it's one of those instances as well where I think the music video kind of fits the song perfectly, because it's, like you said, Paul, like the double entendre lyrics and everything. But the groove is like, I would use, it's like, it's kind of like a sexy groove. Like you kind of move to it a little bit. And then you put all, like I said, all those models in it. It's like, it just kind of fits the vibe, everything. It's like, it's such a complete package between the song and the video and the presentation of all of it. Like, it's just, man, oh man, like, whew, man. So Kale McLeish says, I'm forever taken by that vocal hook towards the end. Yeah, that's another thing that, like, I think, and we'll talk about it later, but I think the backing vocals on this album, like, I think they did a really fantastic job with it. I mean, they really filled out the sound in so many spots.
Tell Kale that's what we call in the industry the sing-along part. That's a touring band writing that, thinking, yeah, the crowd's going to sing that back to us, which no doubt they did,
Yeah. So Jonah completely agrees with you, Paul. He says, 100%, Paul, especially Eddie's open drone chords on both tunes.
Yep.
I mean, that's a great point, Paul, because it's like, when you back those two tunes up, I mean, they're both the album openers, and they do have just those giant ringing chords over the the Michael Anthony 16th notes, like you said, and just same groove, and so very, very good point there. All right, let's go on to track number 2, which I'm just gonna say it outright, it fucking kicks ass. If you don't like Judgment Day, you don't like good music. I will just say that. Anybody who's like, yeah, Judgment Day, like, okay, well, you clearly don't like good music, because Judgment Day is one of the most ass-kicking rock songs ever recorded. And I was thrilled with the Sammy Hagar tour this past summer, Best of All Worlds, because they did play this. And even though Sammy drops it a couple steps now, because he's pushing 80, him and Mikey doing that near the end is just, I mean, no one can pull that off, man. And so that part always stands out to me. The riff, like you said, Paul, it's just, I mean, this is another example. Eddie just like, and the use of the whammy bar in this is so incredible. And even though we know Eddie is the best in the world, I mean, as a guitar player, Paul, I think you can attest this. For him, especially coming out of the verses of to dump the bar twice and then hit the chord clean, the timing and precision required to do that is almost impossible. But he pulls it off. It's just unbelievable. And the leading up to the solo and stuff, where he goes over the top of the guitar. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I mean, it's, you come out of Pound Cake and you're like, oh my God, that was good. And then Judgment Day hits and you're going, oh my God. I think it was, I mean, for me, when I first heard the record, I don't know how you guys feel, but when I first heard the record, I'm like, oh, Pound Cake, hell yeah. Within about 45 seconds of Judgment Day, I was like, okay, this record is going to kick me in the balls, dude. This is amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was just, holy shit, man. Just a statement of, if you didn't like Feel So Good, if you didn't like Dreams, if you didn't like Love Walks In, if you didn't like When It's Love, we're still a kick-ass rock band and we can still rip your face off, and here's proof. And Sammy with just great lyrics. I think the flow of the lyrics is awesome. I've always loved that. And again, a great melody over a riff that I don't think offers a lot of melodic choices. It's basically your one note for the most part you're singing over, and yet he, everyone can sing put it off until Judgment Day. You can remember it. It's like huge. And again, the Eddie solo, I love the live version because he's like kicking his head like you can see how pumped up he is to play it. Like, and I mean, this song just gets you going, man. I mean, I will forever sing the praises of this song, and it was cool when we were ranking our top 10 favorite Van Hagar tunes a couple months ago, and this was on my list. The whole chat had it. I mean, Van Halen fans fucking love this song, and as well they should. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on Judgment Day?
One of my favorite songs ever written by Eden's Curse. I think this is one of their greatest tunes. So I have all fired up in the chat here. I found this. I don't know how I stumbled across this because I stalked Paul and his old band. Are you aware there's a YouTube video of you guys, you probably know this, in the studio recording the song Judgment Day?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Obviously, this isn't news to you.
I was the video editor, so I definitely know that.
Okay. You were there. Yeah, you were there. It's very cool. And
I edited it. Yeah, I knew that.
And I'm not joking. I kiss Paul's ass sometimes on here, but I love your music, man. I think Eden's Curse was very cool. I still listen to a lot of stuff. Great band. Sad that it didn't get probably the recognition obviously you would have hoped for. But I try to turn people on around here that like similar music. I was like, you got to check this stuff out,
Thank you, Brian.
But yeah, man, definitely. But yeah, the song. This is kind of like this is kind of a dark and heavy song, right? This is like Angry Sammy. You don't mess with Angry Sammy, Right. But we get that real quick hit of like the major key right in the pre-chorus, and it balances out some. And then right away I notice it once again, and I don't know if anyone else picks up on it. This great splashy hi-hat from Alex Van Halen.
Yep.
I just love the way that drives the groove. And we said earlier this is the heaviest album probably of them all. I would to this point for sure, but maybe overall if you kind of think about it, and just a great super heavy tune, man. I mean, if you can't get up and like just sort of start slamming your head to this one, and want to go pump some iron or run a half marathon or something, I don't know what you need, if this doesn't get you going.
I see what you did there. If you can't get up,
right?
Yeah, Paul, your thoughts on Judgment Day, man?
Yeah, good pick up, Brian, on the name. So yeah, lyrically, it was a bit of me, to be honest. That's the kind of thing that I would have probably written as well, and do have a song, as you've pointed out, called Judgment Day. But going back to my VH tribute days, this was the song that was the biggest workout in the set, without a doubt. The singer had to be on the top of his game. He was at the very top of his register singing this. Technically, I mean, it's not certainly for the guitar player, it's a workout, but for the rest of the band, I would say it's not Dream Theater levels, but it is intense. It's intense, the rhythm, how tight you've got to be. That is a workout. So you come off that song going, oh, Jesus Christ, please have a ballad next. So you had to... you had to know where to pace it in the show as well. But I agree with everything everybody said. It's an amazing song. I love it's got that dark vibe. Pound Cake's kind of upbeat, and then this takes a kind of darker turn as well. And I would say at the time, you've probably both alluded to it. It's either the heaviest song, maybe something like "Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do" might just slightly trump it. Hey. But this at the time was the heaviest I'd ever heard Van Halen. I thought, wow, I like this. Great song, brilliant chorus, and Brian touched on it. That sorry, it was you, John. And he's doing all the tapping at the end. That's just insane. But great rhythms underneath it for the rest of the band as well. And I think this is the guitar solo of the album for me. I think it's absolutely stunning. I loved hearing it. We had a really talented guy, as you can imagine, who played Eddie. And I just loved every time that solo section came in. It was just a joy to listen to someone try to get close to that. And it was just a phenomenal song. Love it. And by the way, the drum sound, I should have said on Pound Cake, you talked about the Bonham sound. Wow, I think this is the best drums that I've heard on a Van Halen, even better than Balance, I think, as well. It's just so good. Yep.
Yeah, huge. Absolutely huge. And if you go on YouTube, you can find some of the isolated drum tracks from this record, and you can really, yeah. And it sounds, I know Pound Cake's one of them, man. Like, I mean, to your point, it is like the John Bonham sound. Like, these drums are just mammoth. Not to, use, a Van Halen term, but just absolutely massive drums. And I mean, the tonality of it, of the kit is just excellent on this record. And it's, again, like we said earlier, they said there's too much coming out of the speaker, but I think if you want to say that, that's fine. But I think personally, this is probably the best sounding Sammy record by far for me. And I love Balance, because it's, there's a little more meat to it, I think, in the tones. There's, but for something about For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, everything just blends so well together, and I think that's why, to your earlier point, Paul, that's why, like, you don't come out of it going, oh, this solo, this solo, this solo, this solo. You're thinking this song, or this part of a song, and I think the production has a lot to do with that. So, all right. So moving on to a somewhat controversial song on the album, we have track 3, which of course is Spanked. And I don't care what anybody says. I think it's a fun song. Sammy can write some really goofy lyrics at times, and this is definitely one of the preeminent examples of that. But I think it's fun. It's just a fun song. I love the slinky riff, like, and I think and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think this is one of the songs where Eddie used, I think, a bass string as the low string on the guitar to, like, get it to actually keep that tuning. And it's just, I think it's just such a fun song. And it's, we talked about the backing vocals, and this is like, they're doing the ooh, like Mikey and Eddie, and there's that slinky heavy riff, but then it gets into, like, the more upbeat stuff. Like I said, now who you gonna call? Need that affection. Got to have it quick. And then, the chorus goes back into that slinky thing, like, oh, you bad, bad boys. And it's all drop tuned and just dirty. And, oh, I love this song. And, again, I think, if you look at the sequencing of this record, I think these 3 songs are the perfect choices to start it out, because you've got just the straight ahead rock anthem in Pound Cake, and then you've got, like, this just heavy metal banger in Judgment Day, and then you've got the little bit of weirdness with Spanked. And so I think it really kind of sets the record up in a very, very nice fashion. And I've always been a huge fan of this song, and I know it catches a lot of crap from a lot of fans, or, oh, the lyric is stupid, and it's kind of boring. I've heard people say it's kind of a boring song. I'm like, I don't get that, because when are you going to hear Eddie, like, tuned to Q like this? Like, it's, it's just, I don't get it. To me, it's very interesting. And again, it's such a great juxtaposition of a guttural, dirty, sleazy riff with, those big, majestic Van Halen harmonies that, the band is known for. So, I love it, man. I love it. So I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of every song on this record. So I'll just get that out of the way since I'm fanboying already. But I've never understood why this song catches a lot of crap. And there's a reason why they played it pretty much every show on that tour. I mean, they played most of the record, but if it wasn't a good song, they wouldn't throw it in the set, and they did it all the time. So big fan of this one. So Brian, your thoughts on Spanked?
Yeah, Spanked was the perfect song. You go out on a night of drinking, and then you end up at the strip club, which was always a weird thing in general anyway. But it's like, please welcome to the stage, Destiny. I mean, I think what better song to go, to hear in a strip club than Spanked? Which is what it sounds like that it was almost what it was written for. It gives me some vibes of Dirty Movies a little bit, off of Fair Warning. I definitely get a little bit of that feel there, which to me, it's not a bad thing because that's probably one in my top 10 Van Halen songs of all time. So yeah, I mean, you said I can't remember the word you used, but I'll say just totally nasty groove laid down, and you sprinkle in some great percussive stuff from Alex, and then Eddie just floats his magic dust all over it. Yeah, it's a stupid lyric, but who cares, man? I mean, this one's all about that groove laid down.
Yep. Paul, your thoughts on Spanked?
Yeah, again, very similar to you guys. Funny, Brian, the first thing I wrote was this is their strip bar song. So that was the first comment on the notes. Yeah, and I think as well, just I love the space of it that gives Sammy that extra ability. I mean, his vocal's so soulful on this. First minute $3, next time charge you $4. He goes up to the kind of full part. Just so expressive, soulful. Yeah, the lyrics a bit goofy and dirty, but it fits the whole theme of it. Exactly. And maybe that's the vibe that they got in the cutting room when they're, from what I gather, they write a lot of these songs together. And Dream Theater do the same thing with James in the Room, whatever. They'll come out with a melody at the time, and sometimes the music lends where the lyrics going to go. I mean, you can't imagine them talking about the war in Gaza over a song like that. It's just not really what's going to happen. The groove, as you said, John, is everything about the song. But again, you've got those harmonies, as you mentioned. You've got that cool, slinky riff. That's a brilliant analogy or descriptive for it, because that's what it is. It's kind of it's kind of weird in its own way, isn't it? It's not the atypical thing that somebody would play there, and just what a great example of a band that when the right people come together on the right song, it's the greater sum of all parts, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the vocal part too, because that is one of my kind of favorite parts. Where like $3 first minute. Shh, man. I love that with it. Shh, man. Like it's like he's more like talking to you than singing. Like it's very personal. I've always loved that, like how it's just kind of it kind of brings you closer to what they're doing. Yeah. So big fan. And of I think
somebody in the comments mentioned I like the way that they said that it was the first album they found out who they were with Sammy, and I think that that example you've just given, John, is really Sammy bringing his true self. I think if you were to look at all the rock stars that we all kind of idolize, he's one of the top 5 that I would say you could go for a beer with him and have a really good time, and he wouldn't be up his own ass. And I think you hear his personality coming through on the lyrics, like damn, those kind of things. Right. And I think that's cool because it makes it, people can really relate to that. It's there's a certain authenticity to what he does. That okay, it's a goofy, sexy lyric, but hey, have we all ended up in a strip bar?
Right.
Years, we're just human after all. So no, great song.
Yep. The Classic Metal Show, Chris Aiken, thanks for tuning in, dude. Says the only song on this album I didn't like. Finish What You Started was creative, where this was just more dumb and direct, like a bad Motley Crue song, like She Goes Down or Sticky Sweet. Aiken, I'll disagree with you on that because I think the dumb and direct is kind of I kind of enjoy it. It's, you know, I think it's a nice counterpoint to things like Right Now. You know, I think it works really well. I really do. It's, you know, it's just fun and kind of thoughtless, and you can just kind of get into it and, move to it and everything. Like I like it. So I like it. I like it a lot. So another song I like a lot is track 4, that being Run Around, one of what was it, 4 singles on the record? It was what, Pound Cake, Right Now, Run Around, and Top of the World. So yeah, so Chris Aiken, of course you enjoyed Dumb and Direct. Nice. I'm being corrected in the chat, by the way. They're saying that Spanked was only played 20 times. I'm questioning that because I have friends from all over the country that saw that tour, and every one of them said that at their particular show they saw Spanked. So unless, my friends only saw a handful of those 20 times, I think it was more than that. So, but I will defer to the chat because they always they are bastions of knowledge, and they always correct us when we need corrected. So
did it make the track listing on the live DVD? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on that.
Yep. The live album and the album and the DVD. So
it's been a while since I watched that. Maybe I'll dig that out tonight, actually.
Oh, it's so good. It's the only thing that's weird, and I didn't recognize this. And once it was pointed out to me, now you can't unsee it, was that they recorded it over 2 nights and they didn't wear the same clothes. So in the same song, you'll have Sammy in one outfit and then another outfit. And now that I've seen it, I'm like, damn it, I can't unsee that.
All right, so forget that, Paul. Serious question: is there video of the Van Halen tribute band you were in?
That is a good question.
Because we would love to see it. Yeah,
no, there is an EP that we recorded for promoters, where we did Dreams, Jump, and I think Why Can't This Be Love? But it's on CDR, and I don't have a CDR player, believe it or not. But I'll work on that. Is there video? I don't know. It was a lot. I don't think so.
Oh man, that's too bad.
Follow-up question to that, and then we'll get to Run Around. But so you were Michael Anthony. I'm assuming you had to do the Michael Anthony harmonies.
Of course. Well, that's
how in the hell did you pull that off?
Well, I've got a vocal range. Apparently, when I did some vocal lessons when I started out performing and playing, my singing teacher used to tell me that I had the exact same vocal range as Sting, so I can go quite high on full voice, and I can do. So one of the bands I've always wanted to do a tribute band of and be the lead singer would be The Darkness, so I can do that kind of falsetto part quite easily. But again, that's, even his stuff was really, really tough to pull off and perform it live as well. So yeah, it was something that I really enjoyed doing. I looked nothing like him, and I'm, as I said, the slimmest Michael Anthony, too slim and too tall. But we used to do the bottles of Jack Daniels and all the chili pepper, McElhenney's chili pepper T-shirts and things. Yep. I didn't quite have the Warwick bass, which is the brown one, which I used for my Paul Eden's Curse albums, and James Labrie albums were recorded in that, and the acoustic here as well. So yeah, and didn't want to paint that up for the actual shows, but it was amazing. But the guy on Eddie had Frankenstrats, and he had 44 Music Mans. Get that down, you 44 of them.
Wait, the original ones?
Oh yeah.
Those things were impossible to get. People were saying they were on a waiting list. They would order it and get it 2 years later.
Yeah, wow. I'll try and get you a picture of that. I'll try and find it and send it over. But he had 3 hockey sticks. He had a Frankenstrat copy and about 44 Music Mans. What was the one? There was one before the Music Mans. There was 2 different types. There was a Music Man, and then there was God. Somebody will tell us in the chat room.
Yeah.
There was 2 companies that made it. Yeah. PV. There was a PV Wolfgang. That's what it was. The PV Wolfgang.
That was the one right after the Music Man. Yeah, and then the PV Wolfgang became just the Wolfgang. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's I know that there was a black one and a purple quilt top. I think the purple, there was only 9 made in the world, and he's got one. And there was a black one. I think, in fact, I'm sure somebody offered him $30,000 for the purple one, and he refused to sell it. But he had just an unbelievable Van Halen collection. So I'll follow me up on that. I'll get you a photo of that. It's quite a collection. But the guy's whole Eddie thing was just incredible.
That's amazing, dude. Wow. So I really want to see that. Like those guitars are so hard to find, man. I don't think I've ever actually seen an original one. So. Awesome. All right. Well, moving on to track 4, again, another single from the record. Of course, this would be "Run Around," and I think this is kind of like I would say like a quintessential type of Sammy Van Halen song, or a Van Halen song in general, because it's upbeat, it's fun, it's got like a really cool groove you can dance to, and Paul, to your point earlier, it's just like a great riff,
Yeah.
and it's just absolutely, it's just a driving tune. It's got a really cool backbeat, and again, just huge melodies, and like we just talked about with Spanked, Sammy in the bridge, like, oh man, it's hard enough as she makes it harder, and it it's very, very kind of a personal delivery to that, and one of Eddie's just best solos on the album. Personally, for me, it's one of his best solos. To me, period. Because it's one of those kind of sing-along ones, and I like how, like it does that walk up and walk down thing, and the video was a lot of fun. They're on that spinning stage and everything, and there's not much to it. It's just the band is just kind of vamping around, like, hey, look, we're Van Halen, hee, we're having fun, and the song is fun. It's it's just a really up kind of moment. And I think it's it was definitely a perfect choice as a single, because it was definitely one of the, especially when you because you had I'm trying to remember what order they came out. I don't remember if it was Pound Cake and then Right Now and then Run Around, but in any case, I think it was a perfect choice as a single, because you do have other great songs on the record and everything with big melodies and stuff. We'll get to a song later that I think is criminally underrated that, I kind of think could have been a single, but, Run Around is just one of those things that I think the Van Hagar fans specifically really kind of get behind. Like, it's kind of like a song like Summer Nights or something like that, where, it's just like a fun, upbeat, just rocker. The lyrics aren't cheesy. It's, but one of Sammy's tunes about, women again, and just a good, fun, upbeat rock tune. And great riff, great solo, and I love it. It's incredibly solid to me. So, Brian, Run Around.
Yeah, I mean, this one's it's the anti-Judgment Day, right? For starters.
Yeah.
I get a Beach Boys vibe. It's so damn sugary on the melodies, and the harmonies on the chorus. Like it ventures almost into that Beach Boys territory in a good way, Kale put that comment, party metal. Yeah. Party metal. That's a great term for this song. But yeah, I mean, super fun song. I don't know what else I can say about it. I do, like I said, I always kind of got that Beach Boys vibe on the sugar-coated harmonies in there. And props to Paul for doing all those harmonies as well. I didn't even think about that, man. But you got it. If you can find a copy of that, or if you can burn us a copy of your demo, I would love to hear that. That would be great, man.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll need to dig it out. There is actually we recorded a full show live in Aberdeen, so there's about a 90-minute set. So I've got both of those. So maybe I'll try and I'll pick one of those plug-in USB-C drives. John, by the way, I sent you that photograph.
That's I'm actually pulling it up right now.
Yeah. But I'll maybe get them onto YouTube, because we did the whole Roth and Hagar eras as well. I mean, we played one of my favorite songs was "Human Beings" off the best of.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Paul. You're run around. Take it away.
Yeah, no. Again, probably one of the most commercial tracks on it. I think there's Doogie's guitars. So
What the? How much money did this dude make?
Well, when I tell you he works offshore on the oil rigs, that might explain a lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
He was offshore with, I think, 4 off and 4 on. So I count at least 3 of the strats in there.
Wow.
If memory serves me correct, the one to the extreme right is the purple one, because it's also got a built-in. Again, the technical guys on the call might correct me, but is it a Hernandez that he's got in that, a pickup? And they used that for, oh God, which song was it? There was a song that he used the Hernandez on. I think it's on 08U12. But the three Strat Frankenstrats, there's one with, I don't know if it's the one on the left. You can't quite see. It's got the hockey stick neck on it. It's phenomenal.
It's 5150, yeah.
Yeah, they were all custom built in the States. I don't even think his black one's in that as well. So his black one is very like the one I think's on the greatest hits. When you actually see through it, he's got a black one on that as well. So phenomenal collection. That's probably only half of it.
I can't even believe this, man. That is like, I mean, like you said, there's that purple Music Man right there in the middle. This is great for our audio viewers, by the way. If you're listening to the audio version, check it out on YouTube and check this picture out, guys.
Yeah. How many do we count on that? I'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Yeah. And that photo alone. Yeah. That's a retirement plan right there.
Yeah, it is.
That's a 401k sitting on the couch.
If my buddy Jonah is still watching, he is salivating right now, absolutely salivating. Man, oh man. Well, Paul, yeah, your thoughts on Runaround, man?
Yeah, so I love the kind of nasty riff at the start of it, and the way it all starts off. Alex's drumming is phenomenal at the beginning of the intro here, and then it kicks in, and really, again, what I love with Sammy and Van Halen on this album in particular, their verses are so good. You know, as much as we explode over the choruses, the verses to a songwriter and the ear candy that I hear are just phenomenal. This is another fantastic example of it as well. Probably one of the, I think there's probably 3 prime examples of real kind of almost chart-esque type choruses on it, and this is one of them. You know, I think this was made for radio. It's that kind of chorus vibe that just that stays in your head for days to come. And you know, I think it's probably, I would go as far as saying it's like the sing-along tune of the record, if you know what I mean. You can round, here we go. So just phenomenal. Loved it.
Yep. One of my favorite parts about this song is the first time I ever saw Van Halen live was on the Balance tour in '95, and they played this song. And I'll never forget, they went into it and the whole crowd was doing with their arms like round, around, around. Right. And it was so unbelievably cool to me. And when I saw them later on their tour, they didn't have this song in the set list. And this past summer, you know, Sammy was playing it on the Best of All Worlds tour. And man, they go into this song, they hit the chorus, 20,000 people round and round. It was like, I'm getting goosebumps. Like it's so memorable, like that chorus. But I mean, not only the chorus, but like the fans made up this own cool thing that they do, and it, you know, caught fire, and everybody does it. Like, I mean, you know, so, you know, to your point, it is definitely like the sing along, you know, of the record, and it's just so much fun. I mean, I would say that this is one of the songs that, like, the whole record's great, but I you know, I think this is one of the most fun songs on the album. So,
and again, another sorry, John, another kind of cool that kind of breakdown section. Oh man, it's hot enough, but you can up and satisfying. Boom.
Yeah. Oh, she owns it.
That's it.
So great, man. All right. So speaking of great, let's go to track 5, which is one of the most unbelievably underrated, not just Van Hagar songs, but Van Halen songs, period. If I could write a dream Van Halen set list, this song would be in it. And of course, we're talking about Pleasure Dome. If you are a musician, this is a Van Halen song that you look to and go, okay, these motherfuckers know how to play. Because Alex's drum work on this and Eddie's guitar are just, oh my God, like unbelievable. Zauber 96, great to see you, man. Happy New Year. He says, yeah, Pleasure Dome, best track on the album. Yep. Johan Alexanderson is right there with him. Says best song on the album for sure. JG3 says the opening guitar bit is great. More props to my buddy Jonah, who's tuned in. He when we're sound checking, he plays this, and it's, man, the first time he did, and I looked over, I was like, you man, oh man. So we'll like mess around with Van Hagar tracks in sound check. And this is one of the ones that he plays, and yeah, I mean this is, I mean, cheesy term, but it always comes to mind, like, you know, this, like a music journalist would say, this is the tour de force of the record, I think, because, you know, it's got this I did not know. Check this out. Okay, so Jonah says Steinberger on that tune. I did not know he used the Steinberger on this one. I had no idea. Okay, those things are phenomenal. I don't know why that he didn't use that more, but anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. Yeah, but I think, you know, like I said, the drum work and the guitar is so busy but so catchy, and I just like, this song is just so interesting to the ear, you know, because, you know, Sammy's doing that kind of spoken word thing in the verses, you know, oh man, I ain't got a clue how to get out or how to find this place. And then it goes into the, you know, lost in a world so far from home. And, you know, Alex he's doing the double time on the hi-hat, you know, and, you know, Eddie would dig it in, you know, doing the kind of like the jogging guitar part. Like,
yeah.
And then when they get to the solo, it just absolutely rips. And there is so much to listen to in this song. And I just, you know, I've never understood why this song doesn't get more love. Because if you're an Eddie Van Halen fan, this is pretty much what you want to hear from Ed. You got like the broken chord parts. You've got just a screaming guitar solo. It's got that boogie that he and Alex have said, you know, they love doing boogies and stuff like that. And, you know, and the chorus, like, oh, miles and miles. Like, it's just, you know, the pre-chorus, I should say. And then it's, you know, it just, and the chorus itself is so unique because it's, you know, the riff, and it's lost in my pleasure. It's like he's not even singing anything, and it's just like so unbelievably cool. And I mean, I love everything about this song. So, Paul, your thoughts on Pleasure Dome? I'm sure, you know, that for you as a musician, that you definitely would probably, I would say, have an appreciation for this one.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I think it's one of those ones that you forget how good it is. So when I'm revisiting this record again, it's like, oh my God, I forgot how good this was. And yeah, you know, Alex is just all over the place in the beginning of it, some kind of really cool rhythms. And again, the guitar part, I mean, you know, somebody mentioned in the comments, the intro piece is just stunning. And again, what you were saying, John, the really cool vibes of the chorus, the verse is completely different with the vocal approach. You know, this is a musician's song, really. You know, this is songwriter's song. It's whatever you want to call it. This is one that you could kind of almost say that VH went a little proggy here as well. You know,
yes,
there's different vibes on it. You could hear somebody like, you know, there's a Rush kind of vibe to it a little bit in places as well when you think of some of those chords that are in play. So yeah, it's a stunning song, and I mean, as you said, the guitar solo and the solo music behind it as well is just absolutely insane. Yeah, it's not my favorite on the album, but it's got to be up there with, you know, definitely one of the best Van Halen tracks that I could. It's definitely a top tenner for me for sure. In fact, I think one of the ones we didn't play off the record, and I know why, because it's too bloody hard.
Yeah.
So I would think we used to rehearse 1 or 2 times a week, and this is the type of song that would have taken a whole rehearsal just to get a handle on the basics, and then kind of really start to work on it over a few months. But there's a lot to it and a lot of different parts as well. So yeah, incredible song.
Yeah, it's like you said, musically, it's like I don't know how a cover band would pull it off with any kind of feel, because it's like you have to actually like just study the shit out of all these parts.
Yeah.
And oh man, like only Van Halen could pull it off with feel. You know, I think, you know, it's one of those songs that's just so difficult to recreate. And just the little things, like, you know, in the solo, like Alex is on the, you know, his right, so you know, he's doing like the little, like, you know, the percut, like the, I don't want to call it a triplet. I'm an idiot with musical terms, but you know, doing those Alex Van Halenisms, like while he's doing like, you know, the boogie and all. It's just unbelievable, man. So, Brian, your thoughts on Pleasure Dome?
Such a cool intro, and I want to say something about this album. Every song kind of has its own intro that's a little bit unique, but is a main part of the song as well to some point, which I think is something that I don't know that they did on all their other albums. But I get that feeling on this one. There's a bit of and I wonder if Paul will think I'm saying this, I get a bit of Xanadu, late 70s Rush in general on the intro for this song.
You were away there, yeah. That's it.
Yeah. It's it's that little 2-chord progression there. But you know, once it gets going, I mean that Rush part's probably gone. But I just found it interesting that, you know, that kind of goes in that direction. A new twist here, you know, sit down kids, it's your Uncle Sammy in storytelling mode, you know, the way he's kind of talking some of that stuff, but that totally fits behind what's going on musically. You know, it's just another way of Sammy using his voice as a complete instrument. It's not just you know, what Ed can do on the guitar, but like you guys have been saying, like Sammy just comes up with these little things here and there to put his you know, his stamp on this, and it sounds great. I mean, yeah, one of the most impressive musically songs that they've ever done. You know, going back to, I think you have to go back to stuff on Fair Warning when it comes to Pleasure Dome.
I would completely agree with that. That's a great point, Brian. This is definitely them kind of stepping out a little bit, and you know, like Paul, you said, like, you know, a little bit of prog in there, like they got a little progressive and kind of stepped out of that Van Halen comfort zone, but still stayed within, you know, the boundaries of what people liked about Van Halen. I was always bummed out that this is not one of the ones that they did in full, you know, on the live record, because this is just one of those songs. I mean, to see this live, I mean, and you know, they play part of it to intro, you know, the drum solo, and you just hear just that little piece of it that they do, and you're like, God damn it, this is good. Like, I mean, it is a banger, man. So, JG3 says, yeah, I definitely feel some Xanadu or Achilles' Last Stand on the drums.
Yeah.
And Kale McLeish says, that's kind of funny, Brian, given that Pleasure Dome is referenced in Xanadu. So
good point. Good point.
Zalbra 96, he says, yeah, Achilles' Last Stand is a great comparison. Yeah, I think that's a perfect comparison, actually. And by the way, if you guys want to see something hilarious, I just have to say this because I can't stop laughing at this video. There's some Instagram video that I can't get enough of some band playing Achilles' Last Stand, and the drummer's got like a pad, you know, electronics pad, like sound effects, and he's got like a cartoon bang sound, and he hits it in the middle of the song, and just the singer just loses it. It's one of the funniest goddamn. I wish I could play it on here. It's only a few seconds, but holy shit, is it funny. Anyway, there was one comment I wanted to get to here. Oh yeah, so our very good friend Sarcasmo Assholio, we haven't seen him in a while. One of the best names in our chat. He says, my favorite quote from Eddie is when he said, Dream Theater's worst album is Falling into Infinity. Fuck you, Sarcasmo. Oh man, some of you guys will not let me live down Falling into Infinity in my love for that record. Look at this. Kale McLeish says, it's a much better song than Cabo Wabo. Okay, I know what you're doing, Kale, and I know you're saying that Cabo Wabo is a bad song. So Pleasure Dome is a better song, but Cabo Wabo is a great song, so cut it out. I love that song. Another one of those super fun Sammy tunes. All right, so moving on to side 2 of the record, we get into In and Out. I think the next 2 songs are kind of the slow point of the record for me. I definitely love them, and we'll get to, you know, Man on a Mission in a minute here and talk about that riff. But yeah, In and Out, I think, you know, is one of those just kind of straightforward, kind of goofy Sammy lyrics. You know, he's talking about, you know, got you coming in, got you coming out. And it's about, like, you know, money and all this kind of stuff, and kind of a very, you know, we said dumb and direct with Spanked, and I think this one kind of isn't as obvious as Spanked in that regard, but I think it kind of falls into that, you know, category, as does Man on a Mission, as we'll talk about in a minute. But I, you know, this definitely has that, you know, signature groove we talked about on Pound Cake. You know, it's got that kind of like slower kind of groovy kind of move to a little bit. And, you know, it's just monster riffs everywhere. And, you know, he's got some really interesting chord choices in this one to me. You know, and you know, it's just, you know, that ascending part there. He's playing some really cool shit. And, you know, I think guitar wise, even though this is a guitar record, I kind of feel like this song is almost a little bit underrated in terms of what he's actually doing in it, because it is such a kind of a simple sounding delivery. This is, you know, to the ear, it's one of the more simple songs that they put together, but there's a lot going on in the guitar parts that I think really help to keep your interest and still make it, like, you know, just, you know, orally, AURALLY, orally just dynamic, I think. So this is, you know, as much as this one and the next one are kind of, like I say, like, if there was a slow point on this album for me, it would be these two, but I still think it's a great song. So Paul, In and Out.
Yeah, another sing-along banger in my opinion. You know, it's got that really kind of anthemic chorus. Him and Hager and Anthony, I should say, are kind of locked in tandem there with their harms as usual. What's kind of coming to light when I was taking notes as well and re-listening to it, that a lot of the main riffs around these songs, Brian touched on it, they've got those kind of unique intros. They all seem to be almost picking chords as opposed to be big, you know, kind of heavy bass rhythms. And when you start to look at the kind of construct of this one, it's more like a standard blues number as well. When you're going through the verses of it, it's very atypical to a blues, but they do it in their own style. So it's not the kind of 12-bar status quo stuff. It's the lovely kind of arpeggio chords. And then Sammy's just the ability to sing over that, to your earlier point, John, with just, you know, consummate ease, but, you know, with these melodies that are sugar-coated, it's just, it makes it sound effortless. And by God, is that a hard thing to do, you know, yourself,
Yep.
to kind of to write like that. Yeah, I love the song, I really do. Another kind of 16 again from Mr. Anthony, really gluing it all together. So yeah, for me, it's no slow point at all. I think they're, you know, it's a consistently strong album in my opinion. In fact, you'll hear in a minute that I've got very high praise for Man on a Mission as well. But yeah, I get lyrically, it's in that ballpark. But hey, this is VH, you know, this is what they do, and they do it very, very well.
Hard to argue that, man. Like, and I feel kind of bad saying it's a, you know, slow point. Like, I should probably rephrase. Like, I don't think that there's a slow point on the record either. I would just say that for me, you know, when I'm thinking of songs, if I was ranking them, I would say that, you know, and in fact, I know I actually there's an excellent Van Halen podcast out there called and the podcast will rock. So any of you guys that are huge Van Halen fans, they've got, man, between 100 and 200 episodes, and it's an excellent show. And I submitted a ranking of the songs for this record, and I think these two were at the bottom. But that being said, I think, you know, I think Zauber brings up a great point. I think he phrases it perfectly. He says, In and Out is by far the weakest song on the album for me, but it doesn't ruin the album. I wouldn't skip it. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any weak songs on here, Zauber, but I think that's a good point. Like, if you have a least favorite song on this album, you're not going to skip it because it's still a great tune. So, yeah, I agree with that. So, Brian, where do you come in on In and Out?
Well, first of all, Johan ruined my incredibly hilarious comment I had.
Johan says the song is good, but the burger is even better.
Yes. What I was going to say, which is not going to be quite as funny, you'll still be probably falling down laughing, is all the songs about fast food franchises, This is my personal favorite. See, it still was funny.
Oh, yeah.
No, one of my favorite guitar solos, and Eddie Van Halen knows how to use a wah pedal to perfection. Now, I wonder if there was a super famous guitar player in one of the biggest metal bands in the world, if they sort of maybe had a better grasp on how to maybe use the wah. I just thinking out loud here, spitballing, if that might, sink in at some point. But
so there we
man,
go. We've got Lars Ulrich hate. Now we've got Kirk Hammett hate.
Yeah,
hating on half Metallica.
But there is no Alex Van Halen drum hate on this one. The drums on this are absolutely amazing. I fanboy all over this dude, like I said before. And I said something ridiculous. I think I said 85% of Van Halen is due to Alex Van Halen. When we did that episode where we were ranking the Sammy stuff or giving our favorite Sammy moments. I'll go back to be something realistic. I'm gonna say 33% of the Van Halen sound is due to Alex Van Halen. Do you guys think that's high or low?
I you know what? I would, because Eddie's tone changes from album to album a little bit. I could see that, because I think Alex's does not. Like when you hear that Alex Van Halen snare, that's Alex Van Halen. Like that stayed consistent, I think. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think this is something I've experienced over my years as being in music, that the song is actually from the sound is from the musician and the player themselves. Do you think that John Petrucci could pick up a $10 Strat copy out of some beat up store and make it sound good? Of course he could, because it's all in the fingers. So it would, that's why, Portnoy sounds great on the Hello Kitty. These guys just be amazing on anything that they do, and they get the best out of what they are. But for me, a band is always a collective sum of all parts. I've lost singers in the past that disagreed with that. They thought they were the star of the show, and it's really the united kind of collection of Anthony's 16s, harmonies, whether it's Roth or Hager, the guitars, the songwriting, the time, what they were going through at that point in their life. Kirk Hammett, that's very good. They come together to produce that sound. So that in my eyes, all of them are essential. 25%. Let's go. I'll put it that way.
I will go officially on record and back you up, Paul. As a lead singer myself, I will say officially, no, the lead singer is not the star of the show. It is the sum of the parts. It is definitely the sum of the parts. I mean, like to your point, like it's there's a collective that has to be there. That's one of that's it's funny you mentioned that, because anytime someone asks me, "Oh, you're a huge Van Halen fan, you prefer Sammy or Dave?" and I'm like, "Look, I love it all because Eddie Van Halen's playing guitar."
Mm-hmm.
But I have the slightest preference for the Sammy stuff because it is more of a collective, and Sammy was not. He was like, look, Eddie's the guy. Like, he runs the show, like he writes the songs, and whereas Dave just absolutely thought it was, his shit didn't stink and it was all about him, and to the point where they couldn't do, and Alex pretty much said this out loud. Excuse me. He said this recently that they couldn't get an Eddie Van Halen tribute show together because Dave threw a fit about having a moment for Eddie in the show. I mean, Eddie gave this guy his career, and Dave can't even, like, at a couple tribute concerts, take like 2 or 3 minutes to acknowledge Edward fucking Van Halen. Like, yeah, it's just a gross mentality. So, you were working with the wrong singers, man. If I was over there in Scotland, I'd work with you, dude. I'd be easy to work with. So there you go.
I mean, it just happens, I loved my old singer, and I think he was phenomenal, and I've nothing but great respect for anybody that I've worked with as well. But you just do get that with success, that people start to think that it is them that is the star of the show, when it really isn't. Who was the band? Was it Survivor that had a song called "It's the Singer, Not the Song"? And I definitely subscribe to the other way. It's the song, not the singer. However, you can have a great song and a shit singer. So I do see both sides to the coin as well. But look, it's really all of them. And I'll give you another example. A friend of mine's son played guitar with Jeff Tate and was pissed off that I went to see the band with God, his name Todd. I went to see them perform at all. How can you go? Look, I'm a Queensryche fan, you know. So
Yeah.
to me, it doesn't matter who's in the band. It's the songs. It's the band I'm going to see. It's not who's behind the mic. The band are still going, and they'll get my support because I've been a fan since day one. So look, that's why you could swap out Mikey, as much as we all think it was done very underhandedly, shall we say. And yeah, you're not going to lose a massive amount of the sound, but there are elements that Wolfgang will never be able to replicate what Michael Anthony's magic was. So
Yep.
yeah, once bands get success, there's always someone, and it's not just singers. Look, I've seen it happen with guitar players as well. I'm the star of the show. Well, bye.
Yeah. I'm very lucky to not have guys like that. Like Jonah's in the chat, and he's absolutely selfless, and it's really refreshing to play with guys like that, as I'm sure you're aware. And I mean, Brian's not like that. Brian admittedly is a complete and total cock. When you play with him, he wants his keyboard center stage, and he yells at you if you go within 5 feet of him. He's a complete and total jerk. So
yeah, that's me.
yeah, so all right, so moving on to the next track on the record, we are on track 7. This is Man on a Mission, and I think this is one of the most fun riffs on the whole record, and one that, you know, again, I had to see the live concert to understand what Eddie was doing, because I always thought, like, you know, boom, 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 boom. It's like 2 parts at once, and I thought it was the bass, and so I thought it was guitar and bass. Like, and then I see it live. It's like, no, he's literally doing the tapping thing and doing the descending part on it. I'm like, what? In you know, it's just, you know, just another example of Eddie Van Halen setting himself apart from people, you know, because it's so technical. And I think this is part of the brilliance of Eddie Van Halen. Like, there's so many aspects of his playing that are underrated. I think, you know, the songwriting is one thing, but I think, you know, it's been discussed a lot, but I don't think enough, like what an incredible rhythm player he was. And, you know, and his ability to craft an incredibly technically difficult riff, but make it sound like it's not that difficult. And, you know, and this is a perfect example, you know, it's, you know, it's what 3-4 notes or something, but then it's like that little descending thing, and you're like, okay, damn it, Jonah, I know Mike played the same part on bass too, but you get what I'm saying. Don't be a dick. But, you know, when you see that he's actually doing both of those, and you're like, what in the hell is that? Like, are you kidding me? Like, it sounds simple and playful, but then you find out just one guy making all that noise. You're like, oh my God. So, you know, more of, just like I said, just more of Eddie being Eddie. And, you know, again, kind of like one of Sammy's dumb direct lyrics, you know, man on a mission, like he's trying to get laid. So Sammy, you know, talking again about, you know, about chicks and everything. And yeah, I mean, this song is just, you know, catchy, and I love the breakdown, like bam, now, the only thing that's on my mind. And, yeah, and Alex is doing the, you know, there's the triplets on, you know, and then that drum, bam, 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 once you taste the real thing. I mean, it's just so, it's, you know, you used the word sugary a few minutes ago, Paul, and I think this is one of those examples of that. You know, there's a lot to sing along to here, and again, like the, you know, the guitar riff and the solo's great too. You know, I think it's a very overlooked solo on this record, honestly. And you know, and like this kind of falls into the same category as In and Out for me, where I think, you know, these songs, they sound so simple, and, you know, they kind of, you know, they're a little bit, you know, I think they're overlooked on this record, and potentially for good reason, but they're so damn good, and there's so much to listen to. I mean, it's, man, oh man, unfucking believable stuff. So, you alluded to the fact that you really, really like Man on a Mission. So what are your thoughts on this one? Is this your favorite song on the record? Are we at your favorite song?
No,
okay,
we're not. But this was the song that if I was doing a mixtape at the time in '92 that I would pull off of that album to let people play it. And I think my head was still in that big riff moment, and it's certainly the biggest riff on the album, I think. You touched on it yourself. I think, if memory, Jonah's probably going to correct me, but I'm sure they're just doing like a kind of a chord, something like that. He's coming up and down the strings, but like that, which is, I think the best way I could describe it, he's a true innovator, John. He's done it all his career, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I had no idea what he was doing until I saw the live DVD. I went, what the hell?
Yeah,
couldn't believe it. And then you're like, oh wow, that's incredible. So that for me is the kind of riff of the album. As a bass player, you can imagine that I gravitate towards the groove of that song as well. It's a real brilliant groove that they've got there, really bass friendly. Sounds like open E to me, but maybe it's not. But it just kind of comes along. Solo is phenomenal too. Love the interplay or the outer play, whatever you call it, towards the end of the song and the fade out between Eddie and Sammy. There's a kind of singing some of the notes that he's doing and Eddie playing off it. And you've already touched on it, Mike. Alex is just, God, he's just outrageous in the whole record. But another fine example of peppering in those lovely touches and some things on his ride cymbal that just give it an extra kind of flourish here and there as well. So phenomenal song. So again, that was the one I would always gravitate to let people hear, because it was that brilliant big riff. If you've never really heard Van Halen, which a lot of my buddies didn't, so what song could I play them that they would get? One of my mates was a massive thrash fan. He was into Slayer and Napalm Death and Machine Head, and the only bands I would say that we really kind of shared similarities in were Dream Theater, Maiden, and probably there was a third one there that just about went out my head, Metallica. But the rest was super, super heavy stuff. And we actually caught up. He lives in England, so we caught up over New Year, and he'd sent me the footage of Best of Both Worlds doing Seventh Seal, and he went, I didn't know anything about this tour. So obviously right. Hager's lost his passport because he hasn't been in the UK for years. And I don't know if we'll ever get Sammy over here, but we couldn't believe it. But the story I was going to tell you was that he said, do you remember giving me both of those albums, Fuck and Balance, in 92? Well, maybe 95 at the time Balance came out. And he said, you told me, look, it's not your kind of thing, but you will love these. And he said, I still play those two albums to this date. So if I was managing to get a guy who was a thrash head listening to it, that was the song that probably kicked it off, that he thought, wow, this is really good. And then he heard Pound Cake, and then he heard Seven Seal, etc., Judgment Day. He's like, dude, this is insane. This is insane. So yeah, I got a lot of time for the song.
So a couple comments in the chat real quick, and then Brian will get your thoughts on Man on a Mission. Johan Alexanderson says, his fast swing in his rhythm playing is probably what's hardest to replicate. Yeah, he's got this dude, some of the stuff that he does, like, I mean, we're talking about the Hagar stuff right now, but like people trying to replicate I'm the One. I mean, that is like, you hear so many people doing it, so it's like, it's I can't even like sing it. It's this weird like groove thing. And my buddy Nick plays it. My buddy Nick spent months learning it. He's an absolutely killer guitar player, and he nails it. And it is one of the most unbelievable things to watch, because you're like, God damn, that rhythm is, whoo, man, just absolutely crazy.
I would say that would be my top three. I remember I had 45 in a catalogue in the tribute. That was in the top three. Number one, I'll reveal to you because it's my favourite song. Number two was Little Guitars and I'm the One. Those were the three most fun songs to play. When it's Love's, and probably number four. But right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. The kind of the right hand technique, shall we say, Eddie's right hand technique was as good, if not better, than his left. He was just different level. That's why you guys are probably the same as me, is when you get all these crappy might be Rolling Stone magazine rates the top 100 guitar players.
Dude.
Jack White, number one.
Yeah, you're like, I'm even the same when I see Hendrix up there. Look, Hendrix was a pioneer and a trailblazer for sure. But what are we comparing here? The fact they're trailblazers or their actual technical ability? And Petrucci's never anywhere near it. It's like, who the hell wrote this?
Yeah,
You get Joan Jett in there.
Yes, right. I mean, I saw one with like Kurt Cobain in the top 10. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, if you want to talk about like writing songs, okay, I'll give you a Kurt. Like he kind of created a genre basically, and but I mean, I'm with you. Like I've seen these lists where Eddie Van Halen, some of the guys ahead of him are like, you have to be on drugs. You have to be. I mean, I'll even say like I see so many of them have like Jimmy Page ahead of Eddie. I'm like, look, Jimmy Page, one of the greatest rhythm guitar players ever, one of the greatest songwriters ever, sloppiest popular lead player you've ever heard. I mean, Heartbreaker. I mean, is that the one that with the that little solo break? I think it might be.
Yeah.
There is so much slop in there, and it's like, oh, it's so great. I'm like, no, it's sloppy as shit, man. Like, if that's what made the take, what the hell was left on the cutting room floor? Like, that's, oh my god. So, but yeah. So, Cale McLeish has an interesting comment about this one, by the way. He says, so yeah. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. Let me bring the other one. There it is. Sorry about that. Wrong comment, guys. He says, I can kind of hear a little bit of Cowboys from Hell, just way less heavy and a lot more swing in the lower version of the riff. That's an interesting take, Cale. Yeah, I could see that a little bit. A little bit of that, like Paul, you mentioned the right hand. Like, yeah, I could see that a little bit, Cale. I could see that. Brian, your thoughts on Man on a Mission?
I'll make it quick because otherwise we're gonna have a 5-hour podcast.
Right.
It's just a great jazzy barroom boogie. I think it's a pretty simple song initially, but then, like we said, he kind of milks every last drop out of this thing. Somebody mentioned that it's very similar to Satriani's Satch Boogie, which is very interesting considering that song came before this one, right? So
yeah.
But cool song. I think the riff itself, it sounds like something Eddie could have came up with in 5 seconds, but it's everything that you do around that and how Sam builds on it. So,
yep.
I mean, like you were talking about ranking it, I definitely put it probably more towards the bottom, but still cool, fun song.
I hope you mean the verse riff he could have wrote in 5 minutes, not the intro.
Yeah. No.
Brian's like, that's so easy. It's like, yeah, because you have two hands on your instrument, man.
Right.
That's a normal thing on a keyboard, man. So,
right.
All righty. So moving on to thankfully the fans love it, but I think the casual Van Halen fan doesn't talk nearly enough about this song. We are talking about track 8, The Dream Is Over. Psst, hey, come on, man. Wake up. Yeah, exactly. It just, this song is so great. I was so bummed out that this was not on the CD release of the live record from this tour. Thankfully, it is on the DVD, so they did rectify that. And if you have the vinyl of Live Right Here right now, it is on there as well. But yeah, Dream Is Over is just, man, I think this is like a combination of the heavy Van Halen and the catchy Van Halen, because like you said it, Paul, like, and it's kind of got that chugging riff, during the verse, and Sammy, he's got a little bit about that pissed off thing, like you said, Angry Sammy earlier, Brian, just a little bit. So it is a little bit heavy, but then you get to the chorus and it's dream another dream. This dream is over. And you've got the ooh, like all the oohs from, Mikey and Eddie, and like it's it's kind of like that upbeat, positive, happy chorus, and it goes back into like, just like the the more like heavy part of the band. And again, just a kick-ass guitar solo by Eddie, and just shredding his nuts off on this one. And this was a song that I immediately gravitated towards. And I remember when the record first came out, like I was talking with my friends, and all of them were kind of like, "Yeah, I don't really like that song." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? like this song just grooves, it drives, man. It's like a power, like, yeah, let's get going kind of thing. Like, and they, for some reason, I still can't fathom it. Like they just weren't into it. And I don't understand what there is to not like about this song. Like it's this is kind of like, to me, excuse me, if there would be a list of like gateway Van Halen songs, I might put this on that list. Because yeah, there's some heavy parts, there's some catchy parts, there's screaming guitar solos, there's really catchy background vocals, that really elevate the level of the melody and make it bigger. Like, so again, for me, I absolutely don't understand how a Van Halen fan wouldn't love this song, but to each their own. So, Paul, the dream is over. The floor is yours.
The dream is over. Good night. Yeah, I mean, the song for me is all about the chorus. There's so much about it, but oh my God, when that one hits, it's like, whoa, that is it the best chorus in the album? Probably. It's difficult to think of one that tops it. Still not my favorite song. My favorite song still to come, which you might know. But incredible chorus. Love the whole intro, the way it goes, the kind of darker vibe of the verses, just everything that you've said, John. The guitar work. I mean, yeah, you would be an idiot to not say the guitar work in any Van Halen album's phenomenal. But this, again, it's just when you think you've figured out how far Eddie can push the envelope, he takes you in a different direction. And what I love about him is, with all that technical ability, he always plays for the song for me. He never overdoes it, in my opinion. You could probably hum back most. This is something that I always fought really hardly with our guys when they were cutting solos, or our guy, I should say, Thorsten, was, look, you've got all the technical ability in the world, but let's be more musical. I think it just runs through Eddie's core naturally, because there are elements that he puts into verses where he could easily overplay or put big power chords behind it. The previous song was a great example of, where it was almost like a blues workout, and he would just ching, ching. That's all he needed to do in between Sammy's verses, and he's got the same kind of thing here as well. So one of my favorite songs on the record, without doubt.
Yeah, I think, Jonah kind of nails it. He says, probably one of the meanest and heaviest riffs, fucking ripping lead too. Also, I'm pretty sure this is one of the tunes on the album that he used Steve Lukather's amp. I think I remember reading that, Jonah. I think you're right on that. Yeah, and I think that's actually something that we haven't mentioned yet. Eddie's tone changes slightly from song to song, and I kind of like that. Like, because I think on other records you hear that he used a different guitar here, a different guitar there, but I don't think you don't really notice it. It's very difficult to. But on this one, I think you can hear it because the tone gets heavier at times. This one is more like crunchy, and it's like a little more in your face, whereas something like Pound Cake is so distorted, but it's much more clean and kind of open. And so that's another aspect of this album that I like, is that I mean, Brian, you pointed out that like each song has like a different intro, and the songs kind of like they're their own entities. They stand apart very well. But I think also the guitar tone has a lot to do with it as well, because there is that denomination or delineation. I guess I don't know, that's probably not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Like the songs separate themselves based on the guitar tones. I think which I think is very, very cool. So
I think as a musician as well, especially when you're creating a single body of work, that there are different vibes. The glue that holds it all together. You might reach for a Les Paul for this type of solo. You might go for a Stratocaster, or maybe like a Telecaster for a certain element of it. This kind of sound is probably closer to Judgment Day than anything else on the record as well. So maybe it's the same amp, same guitar. But I think what holds it all together, and the phrase that we used to use in the album was, when we make an album, is don't change it too much, especially the glue of the rhythm section. Don't bring in a completely different set of toms, because you don't want it to end up sounding like a best of album. You want it to be that single body of work, because rock fans traditionally, maybe some of the younger guys will disagree, we traditionally listen to albums as a whole. Maybe it's just our age group. But certainly I do when I pull out a Van Halen record, I'm listening to that whole album. Yeah.
No. Brian, well, what do you think about The Dream Is Over? If I remember right, you're pretty high on this one too, I think.
Yeah, this made my top 10. I don't remember where. I was trying to find my old list, mainly so I didn't have to do a bunch of homework on the other stuff, or completely contradict what I said before, which I tend to do because we do these shows where we listen to stuff and then we think something totally different about the next time.
Yeah.
But you guys kind of both pointed it out. I think John just said it first, that you get all those massive heavy parts. Well, again, a great intro on this one too. Want to bring that up? Obviously, you said it, but yeah, man, it's like there's all these really heavy parts in the verses and everything, and the breakdowns, and then you have I don't know, I can't recall too many songs where it's just this super lightweight, mellow chorus, and just in Paul being a songwriter appreciates this. The use of dynamics, like that's songwriting 101, being able to pull off something like that. I'm just trying to think back on a song that is that heavy and then goes that light on the chorus like that. I don't know. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of a great example.
Fly Away by Eden's Curse.
What's that?
Fly Away by Eden's Curse.
Okay, I will go check that one out then.
Drop B mother, heavy riff, and a chorus like that. So.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, but just a great song. I mean, the message in it is it's so uplifting and powerful too, and that's the thing a lot about. You could joke about the stupid lyrics on this album, but there's also some really positive and really introspective lyrics for some of probably some of the best stuff Sammy's done lyrically too on some of this stuff as well.
Yeah. All right. So couple comments here in the chat real quick. Johan Alexanderson says, seems to me that music nerds tend to listen to albums and casual listeners don't. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's definitely, for people that just like to put music on just to have something to listen to here and there. Yeah. But I think, for people, like you guys in the chat, I'm sure, and obviously the three of us, we do like to listen to albums. I think it's like you want that full experience, because, I would use, and this is probably a negative example, at least for me, but, Foo Fighters, I love the hits on the radio. So I went and tried to listen to a Foo Fighters album because I want to get the whole experience. And the non-hits, I did not like at all. I was like, holy crap, this is not good. Like, no offense, Dave Grohl. I love Dave Grohl. He's a cool dude and everything, but yeah, not a fan of the rest of the stuff. Kale says, I don't know if we covered this already, but did they name this album For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge just because they wanted the swear word acronym? Or Kale, in Sammy Hagar's autobiography, which, guys, I cannot recommend enough. It is absolutely fabulous. To pimp my other podcast, my Star Wars podcast, the Nerf Herder Council, if you go to audibletrial.com/NHC, you get a free audiobook with Audible, and you can download the audiobook version of Sammy's book, which is excellent. Again, so according to Sammy's autobiography, this was, a time when censorship was running rampant and stuff, and Sammy wanted to call the record "Fuck Censorship." And the story that he tells us, he wanted that title, and he was training with Ray Boom Boom Mancini at the time, and Ray asked him, "Hey, what are you guys going to call the new record?" And Sammy said, "Oh, we're going to call it Fuck Censorship." And Ray Mancini went, "Oh man, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge." And he said, "What?" And I guess like his mom had told him that, back in like the olden days, like, like medieval times, whatever, like if a woman was caught cheating, she was put in the stockade in the town center, and, they had a sign hanging over her that said For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And that's where that, fuck came from. And so he's like, "Oh man, that's cool." So it kind of is for the acronym, Kale, but he thought it was a cool title. And, obviously, the other thing is, their management had kind of said, "You're never going to get a record into the stores like easily if you call it Fuck Censorship." So, when a ton of your sales are coming from Walmarts and stuff, you can't exactly have that sitting on the album cover. So, so that's where that, that's where that comes from.
So
So,
probably the story then is where the acronym came from the old days. That's probably where the word came from.
yeah,
I
oh,
would
exactly.
I'd heard that before. In fact, it appeared in an episode of The Big Bang Theory. Sheldon mentions the phrase as well. So I thought, well, if the nerdy geeks know it, must be true.
Right. Johan Alexanderson with a good point here, and then we'll get to the next one, which I'm assuming I'm going to start off with. I'm going to let you start the next one, Paul, because I'm guessing this is your favorite song. But so Johan Alexanderson says, I always assumed it was a continuation of the kind of trash talk with DLR. Yeah, that's it. I like that you mentioned that, because I don't think a lot of people pick up on that. That Dave titled his first solo record "Eat 'Em and Smile," as we know. But then you have the next, the following Van Halen record is "Oh, You Ate One Too." Like it was, so I don't think a lot of people pick up on that, but it's very subtle. But it's cool that I like that you brought that up, because I think that's like a cool little tidbit there. So, all right. So Paul, is Right Now your favorite song? There it is. All right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I will give you the floor. And again, we are talking about track 9. And Paul, you are not wrong. This is just a phenomenal song. Track 9 right now.
Yeah, I think this is not just my favorite Van Halen song. I think it's probably one of my favorite songs of all time. Some people might think it's sacrilege for a guitar band, but Eddie's a hell of a keyboard player. I mean, we've seen examples of that, going back to 84, whether it'll be Aisleway or the Jump, for example. Again, I developed an immense love of it for being in the VH. I'm going to play a little bit in bass, because I still love to play. If I can just find my picture, because it's quite a workout. So I love at the start, you've got all those kind of, I'll show you here, and you've got these kind of pinch harmonics on the bass as well. And then and I love the kind of bridge. Just great musicianship. Lyrically, I think Sammy just had, such a great inspirational title. Everybody knows how cool the video was, how well it did on MTV and VH1 back in the day. What a cool message. Just a phenomenal song. I mean, everything, the verses, the vibe of it, the lyrical content. It's a joy to play it, because it's a real workout in terms of the musical kind of way that the song is structured, the tempo, the rhythm. Everybody has to be on their A game as well. So yeah, it's my favorite Van Halen song of all time. Absolutely love it. Never heard it performed live. Never seen Van Halen. I forgot to mention that. Never ever got the chance. Yeah. I got her, but can't say more for this song. Just absolutely love it. Somebody did have a what I call a bass okie version on YouTube. So it was the band's version of it minus the bass track, and I used to jam along to it. So I always had this plan to do a recorded version of it and do it professionally in the studio here, and never ever got around to it. And it's now been taken down. But I know there's these new AI apps. I can't remember. I've just discovered one the other day with a colleague of mine that were pulling together some tracks, and it allows AI, takes everything out in stems, so you can get all the drums, the guitars, the vocals. So I'll probably go and find Right Now and do that. My two favorites I used to jam along to would be that and Mean Streets as well. Just absolutely love playing the bass on that song. It's killer. But what a tune.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. This song is just quintessential Van Halen. To me, actually, I would say this song is quintessential Sammy Hagar. One of my favorite aspects of the song isn't even really related to the music itself, but Sammy Hagar holds on to this song like his favorite child or his favorite toy or his favorite this is whatever it is. Like he always comes back to the fact that, you know, this song will never die. It's timeless. And he's so proud of this song. And, you know, he did it on the, you know, the Best of All Worlds tour. You know, he plays it a lot in his solo shows. And it is just, I mean, to your point, Paul, it has everything. And it's actually kind of punish, you know, it has everything. But but yeah, I mean, you know, the piano part is beautiful. And to your point about the music itself, it's, you know, the song, you know, the melody and the lyrics are so strong that you don't realize, you know, what you just played is going on underneath that, like this, you know, kind of, you know, you know, like it's, I mean, like everything just works perfectly in this song. And the feel of it and the atmosphere of it is just so unbelievably powerful. And I think, you know, I think a testament to this song is the fact that, you know, this is a guitar album. I mean, I don't think anybody would deny this is Eddie Van Halen saying, you know, Brian, you mentioned it earlier. We've talked about it a few times. Eddie Van Halen saying, I'm a killer guitar player. Watch me just kick your ass on guitar. And as much as people think of, you know, a Pound Cake and a Judgment Day on this album, I think, you know, at least in my conversations with fellow Van Halen fans, this album is kind of defined by Right Now. You know, this is the one that, you know, people, they, you know, associate with this album, you know, the most. Again, maybe other people have different experiences. For me, all of my Van Halen buddies, like, they kind of like, oh yeah, the album with Right Now. And, you know, the video was super cool. You know, that had a lot of feel to it, and it was just a very interesting delivery. And, you know, it was just, I mean, the whole thing, you know, like we talked about Pound Cake with the song mixing with the video so well and making a complete package. I think Right Now the song and the video do the same thing, at least for me. And I really, really love the fact that on an album with songs like Spanked and Man on a Mission, you know, or, you know, something really heavy like Judgment Day, you know, things like that, you've got this song, which in a way sticks out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the record, yet still fits the record so perfectly. I think it gives the album a lot of color, a lot of character. And I just, you know, I can't find a single thing wrong with it. And, you know, the live version on the live record, I absolutely love that outro. It's just, you know, it's just Eddie and Sammy doing that, you know, just those two kind of riffing by themselves. And it just, even that fits the vibe of the song itself. And I mean, it's to me, it's a perfect song. It's a perfect song. I don't think you can find a single flaw in any way with it. You know, the lyric is great, the music is great. You know, my buddy Jonah, he says, you know, Right Now is the definition of a guitar solo that fits the song. Perfection. Yep. Yeah, and that right there too. Yeah, I mean, it's just everything works on this one, man. Everything works. So, Brian, what do you think about Right Now? I know as a key player, this one probably hits a little harder for you because you really appreciate, you know, the piano parts.
I love the piano parts in this. It's a great exercise to another song where we're really kind of pretty dark, you know, in the verses and whatnot. When we get to the chorus, we're minor, and then we go major, and we lift ourselves up. And that's always sounds like an easy thing to do in a song. But it's really not as easy as you would think. Also, the other thing about this song, and I've talked about this before, being a keyboard player, especially with piano and electric guitar is very difficult to mix together without battling each other nonstop. And the way he's able to layer these parts to where they both stand out significantly, but they're playing together, it's very unique. There are not many songs that can do that. And the way, I don't know, there's just something about, and I guess because he's so adept at doing both, he knows how to interplay those two. And it's it's sort of the jump, it's sort of off of 84 of this. Your casual person's going to go, oh man, I know that riff. I know that song, same with Joan, they're not going to know, Top Jimmy, and they're not going to know Judgment Day or Pleasure Dome or any of that stuff. But, it's when your song is played at sporting events, I mean, every NFL game, every NBA game, every hockey game, and I don't know, maybe it's played in soccer and rugby games over there in Europe, Paul. I don't know, but that's how you know. That's how.
No.
Okay, but that intro, literally, whenever there's a timeout in the NFL in the stadium, and the players are huddling around trying to figure out, it's like this moment of like contemplation, which is what that song is kind of all about. Are we gonna seize control? Are we going to wallow in what we are, or are we going to try to rise up over all this stuff? And it's just such a classic riff there, and then I love the way he's able to expand out that, just the way the two parts that somebody put in there about it being a perfect guitar solo too. I mean, it just, I don't know, just such a great song, and probably one of those that at some point, sometimes I almost take for granted, like, okay, I love it, but I heard it again, I mean, and there's songs like that, I mean, Def Leppard, we joke about Hysteria. I've heard every song on there 5 million times, and especially even Hysteria, but I still hear it and I go, damn, I still love that song, but sometimes it gets to that point with this song, and then I come back and I go, no, it's still a great song,
Yeah, it's undeniable is what it is. You just absolutely can't, like you said, like Brian, like, you could think, okay, it's overplayed. I've heard it too many times. But then you sit down and listen to it, and you're like, yeah, it's right now. I mean, it's just amazing. To your point about being overplayed, like I would say that, for me, and no disrespect to these songs or anything, because obviously they're absolutely legendary. But if I had to hear Running with the Devil, You Really Got Me, or Ain't Talking About Love one more time, I'd be like, oh, God damn it again. But if I don't have that with Right Now. Like, I don't. So
I think part of its success, I mean, it didn't translate in a sporting sense in the UK. Probably UK people wouldn't know it as much as Jump. I mean, Jump is the biggest. Jump and Why Can't This Be Love are the two super hits here that would, like, my mum would know. Let's put it that way, household tunes for sure. That didn't really make it, but it certainly connected with the rock fan base for sure, and it was on MTV enough that a larger percentage of people would know it. But I think the message of the song connected with a lot of people too, and what you touched on, Brian, the kind of message behind it, the contemplation aspect of it as well. So I think that's why it continues to kind of still be really popular. And look, I'm not Michael Anthony. I'm certainly not Sammy Hagar, but I absolutely adored, I'm pointing because my bass is right there. I absolutely adored playing this song. And I think that's part of the attraction for a musician as well. The most boring song in the Van Halen set for me as a bass player to play was Ain't Talking About Love, because it literally 2 notes the whole song.
Yeah.
It was just boring, right? It was absolutely boring, but the crowd absolutely fed off it and loved it. But for me, it was like, oh God, here we go. That and Dance the Night Away. That had 3 notes as opposed to 2.
Yeah.
Dance the night away. But when you came to things like I'm the One, little guitars, this kind of stuff, they were just more interesting to play as well. And if you've got that interesting factor musically, coupled with the fact it's resonated with a global audience and the fan base, your hardcore fan base adores it, that's no wonder Sammy's holding on to it, because there will be those moments in your life where the lyrics right, the vibes right, the music's right, the performance, the parts, everything. And yeah, why would you not want to hold on to that for the rest of your life?
Totally agree, man. Totally
lucky
agree.
Man. He's a lucky man.
Very much so. Jonah says, anyone else craving a Crystal Pepsi? Excellent reference. Did you have that commercial over there in the UK over in Scotland or anything? No. So Van Halen, do you remember Crystal Pepsi? Did you guys ever have Crystal Pepsi over the clear Pepsi back at this time?
I don't remember the Pepsi, but with the clear Coke.
You had clear Coke?
Yeah.
Wow, we didn't have that. We had clear Pepsi. It was called Crystal Pepsi, and Van Halen, I think it was $2 million. They sold the rights to right now, and the Crystal Pepsi commercials were right now.
Right.
So yeah, Chastity.
Maybe I have to check the memory banks. Was it called Tab, TAB, by Coca-Cola? And it was a clear.
Tab was a diet. Was like the
Yeah.
first diet soda here in the U.S., but I don't know. It could have been different over there.
Maybe I'll check that out. But
Chastity Crawley says, "Damn, now I miss Crystal Pepsi." And Aiken, you ass. I've smoked some clear Coke back in the day. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah, damn. All right, so moving on, we got two more left, and I don't think there's too much to say about the next one. But it is kind of like an interesting little thing. It's obviously just a guitar piece, a quick little minute and a half, whatever it is, guitar piece. Obviously 316, 316, however you want to say it. One of the things that kind of surprises me is how many Van Halen fans don't know that this is it's Wolfgang's birthday. That's where the 316 comes from. A lot of really okay, yeah. So basically, this was, I mean, and this is pretty much common knowledge, but Eddie would always play this little piece of music either at the beginning or in the middle of his guitar solos live, like when he has big solo spots, like 15-minute solo spot. And when Valerie Bertinelli was pregnant with Wolfgang, he would put his acoustic, which he doesn't play acoustic almost ever, didn't, I should say, on her belly, and he would play this. And so because this was something that he played on her belly, he decided to put it on the record, and that's why he called it 316, because Wolfgang's birthday is 3/16/91. So yeah, so there, perfect example, Paul, real time. There you go. Some Van Halen fans don't know that it's 316 for his birthday, right?
I have had a laugh in a few times. I've been traveling. I travel a lot with my main day gig and my hobby, of course. And I have stayed in room 316, and it always gets a chuckle from me. Maybe only twice it's happened, but I always remark at the door number, so it does mean something to you.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much all we can say about it then, really. I mean, like, Brian, any thoughts about 316?
Well, I wrote a song. It was called "The Square Root of 99,856," and then I found out that Eddie wrote this one, so I was kind of like, I sort of felt like a little bit of artistic integrity had been compromised there.
You're such an asshole, man. You're such an asshole.
Oh, wait a second. You got to bring up Aiken's comment, that last one.
Oh, God. Aiken says, so many jokes about 316 and Valerie's belly. As a fellow fat guy, John, you know where I'm going.
John, I want to clarify this. John is not fat. John is just big for his age. So let's just once and for all. I don't think it's fair to say that about you.
Oh my God, I love the support, but I love the sarcasm even more. So
I do want to go real quick back to Paul. He was saying how you wanted to be a front man for the Darkness tribute band. Yeah. You definitely are skinny enough, because I was actually on the Monsters of Rock cruise with Justin Hawkins when he was doing the wave pool, and his girlfriend was there, and I got yelled at for taking pictures of him. That dude is the skinniest human being I've ever seen in my entire life. So you definitely will fit the body part for that, man.
The body part.
There you go.
All right.
You can't fatten a thoroughbred, mate.
Nice.
That I'm gonna hold on to that one. That's a great line, man. All right, moving on to the final track, the closing track of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Of course, we have yet another single off the record. It is Top of the World. I think that this is a for all the records that I love, that I'm closest to, this is by far one of the most perfect closing tracks out of all of them. It is just, you've had this awesome listening experience. You're like, holy shit, this is a great record. And they have the most upbeat, happy, positive, fun song on the record to close out. It's like, and it's just right as you think you're just having the best time, it is an absolute exclamation point at the end of the record. You're like, it just boosts you. And, I think it really leaves you, it cements the fact that you had a great time listening to this record, and that it's a fun record, and it's just, just a great experience. And Again, like, Brian, you'd mentioned, Sammy's positive lyrics and stuff. And, Paul, you had touched on that a little bit earlier too. But, this is definitely, standing on top of the world. Like it's, spoken from the perspective of a guy who, he's in the biggest band in the world at that time, extremely successful. Life is just kicking ass for him. And, he's making money. He's playing with Eddie Van Halen at that point. They were still like best friends. And, he's singing about it. He's like, life is good, man. Like, I'm going to sing about it. And it's just such a fun song to listen to. And, the guitar riff is great. The fact that it's, another great example of Eddie and his creativity just being, next level. The riff to this song, he built this entire song off of a riff in the outro to Jump. And it was just a couple of those, like, if you listen to Jump, like, might as well jump. He does it one time in Jump, and he took that one little thing and created this entire riff and song based off of that. Like, I mean, it's just brilliant how, it's just again, I said it earlier, I'll use this phrase again. Another amazing example of Eddie being Eddie. Taking just the smallest little nugget of something and turning it into something huge. And, again, it's just like, it's just a monstrous riff. Everybody knows that, big riff, and just, the whole song is just positive and happy, and, it's bouncy, and it's got a cool groove and everything. And again, the ooh, those awesome backing vocals, under the baby got a feeling, I want to touch it now. So I love the guitar solo on this one. Again, it's just a fun guitar solo. Like, Jonah was talking earlier about the solo, and right now just like fits the song. I think this one is the exact same. I think it's a great example of that. Again, it's just a fun, bouncy solo, and just the vibe of it, just, it adds a little bit of I don't know how to phrase it, because it's like, it's a happy, fun solo, but it's like it just adds that teeny little bit of seriousness in a couple parts, at least to my ear, to where it's like it's the perfect, very teeny counterpoint to how up the whole song is. There's a little bit of stuff in there that makes it a little more serious. And I've always loved that about this. And then right as it gets that little bit of seriousness, then it goes into, and then back into the happy part. Yay, let's end the song. Like, so just fantastic all the way around. It's just such a fun song to listen to. And again, for me, it's always been just the perfect exclamation point to this record. Again, I think this record is sequenced perfectly, and this is just, if you bookend Pound Cake and Right Now, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that to me. It's just excellent choices. So, Top of the World, Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I do remember that riff, actually. It was one of the very few that I can play for Van Halen. So, oh. Hey, baby.
Yeah.
But I never got that. It was the at the end of Jump was what was playing. Yeah, love it. So again, the anthemic nature of that chorus is just, and I think I'd said earlier on, did we say Run Around might have been the best chorus? You see where we're going. We've got Run Around, you've got The Dream Is Over, you've got this, wow, what a great melodic rock chorus. When you look at it, you could imagine somebody like Night Ranger or, Journey singing something like that. So anthemic, but yeah, you've pretty much said everything I would want to say, John. Love that. Love the kind of start of the solo where it's, I don't know what Alex is playing. Is it a floor tom or a gong drum or something? But it's it's really kind of really cool start to it. It's not your atypical let's go and do it. It almost builds into the solo, and when it does, he really kicks off and takes it. And again, it's another example. Your buddy was Jonah was talking about it as well. Just playing for the song, singing. The guitar absolutely sings at you in this song as well. Mr. Anthony, Mr. Hager, just absolutely glued in on those harmonies. Another killer sing along section as well. Just and as you say, the positivity. And I think, I'm not a massive fan of Sammy's solo albums, but the ones that I have got and listened to, you never get Sammy singing about, really down in the dump songs. Are always positive. Maybe something that if anybody knows the Marching to Mars album, he's got that phenomenal song, Who Has the Right, which is another brilliant lyric. What a song that is. It's all piano as well. And that's where he'll touch on a super serious subject, but there's positivity in it, and I think this is another prime example, similar to what DT did with the Top of the World song that they had as well. It's got that kind of really, I'm standing at the top of the world. It's a fine line also between saying, hey, I'm in the biggest band in the world, and coming across like an absolute ass. Going back to my earlier point of Sammy being that type of guy that you think, I could go for a beer with you and chill out and talk to you for a couple of hours, and you wouldn't come away thinking, God, he was all about himself. He just seems like a really cool dude, and why not have a message like that says, look, life is good. And I think what he's also saying is the people that are listening to these songs and buying the records, you guys helped put us here in the first place, and what a way to do it. I agree totally, John, with what you were saying. What a great end to the record. You could have ended it with Right Now, but then, it's got another kind of layer to it as well. So, for me, there's not a duffer on this album. I don't know what you guys call it in the States. We would call it a duffer or a skip song or anything like that. But I love every one of them. Sure, I'd rank some higher than others, but every single song has got its own character, its own story, its own flavor, its own vibe, but they're all absolutely excellent, excellent songs. I'll go as far as saying this is definitely my favorite Van Hager record. I loved 5150. I love Balance, but there are songs for me on those albums that dip below the ones that are on this. So even the lower ones, I don't even know what I would class as my weakest song on this. I haven't even thought about it, because again, as a musician, it's not a competition. It's just art. You gravitate to some, and you get totally inspired and excited about some, and maybe less than others, but they're not in competition. They're just, it's parts of that story that they're trying to tell, especially like us, we listen to the complete body of work as well. So I can't think of what a bad song on this record would be.
I think to me, I would phrase it as, I don't think it's a weak song. I think it's, which ones come to mind the least. Because they're all great, to your point. I mean, they really are. They are absolutely fantastic songs, all of them. And it's like, well, what do you think of on the record? It's like, that would be, if you had to rank the songs, that's kind of, okay, well, this one comes to mind first. And, for me, it would be like, Judgment Day and Right Now and Top of the World and stuff like that. And, but as I said earlier, In and Out, Man on a Mission, are down, but they're still kick-ass songs. I mean, Kale had a comment earlier in the chat where he said that, I believe he was talking about those songs, In and Out and Man on a Mission would be total bangers on OU 812. But on this record, they're kind of like overshadowed. And I thought that was an interesting comment. So
it's a fair point as well.
Brian, your thoughts on Top of the World?
Okay, so someone said don't ask me my opinion, but I'm going to go ahead and give it anyway. Why don't they just call it Jump 2, like Metallica, Unforgiven? What is it? What are they up to now? Number 9 on the Unforgiven? It's like 5 or 6 or something.
Before you continue, are you about to shit on Top of the World?
No, dude, I love this song.
I was going to say, don't you do it, man.
Yeah, no, actually, I thought this came out I thought this was the outro for Happy Trails originally. I got it all mixed up.
God damn it, Brian.
No, dude, I mean, I forgot who said it, but to come up with entire, I think it was you, John, one of the few semi-intelligent things you said today, regarding, you came up with an entire song out of this one riff, like, to build around that, man. I mean, yeah, and like Paul said, what a great ending. I mean, to end up literally on top of the world, like, you feel like so high by the time the end of the song goes. I mean, it's just a natural, your endorphins start kicking, especially if you're out running or, jogging or I don't know, if you're working or doing stuff around the house, I mean, it's just a feel good, great rock song, man. I mean, how can you not just start jamming and grooving to this every time you hear it? There's really not much else I can say about it.
Yeah, no, it's just like, it's an up song. It's up all the time. And again, it's an absolutely just perfect capper, to the record. So, all right, let's give some final thoughts, and then Paul will put you in the green room. We'll talk to you a little bit for a second off air. And I would say, for me, final thoughts. Again, this is, a very seminal record for me in terms of, my, listening tastes and things that I loved at that point in my life. I was 15 again, and I was, again, I think it is important to me, as I mentioned earlier, because I was finally starting to understand the actual playing aspect of these sorts of things. And for that reason, like, I had a different appreciation of what was going on. And, when you combine that with the fact that it's just an ungodly strong album, it just hits really hard for me. And, I know a lot of people might give shit to OU812. I mean, Paul, you just mentioned 5150 Imbalance, and this one you skipped OU812. So obviously you might not be the biggest fan of OU812. I know some fans are not into that record, as much as the others. I personally love OU812. But that being said, hearing Eddie get back to being just a guitar god, was awesome. And to this day, it's awesome. I love where it sits in the catalog, and just the whole energy around it. And, even stuff like, I chose my background picture today because that's, one of the liner pictures of them all just around the microphone screaming out some vocals. Like, just even that, like, when I bought the record, the CD, and I, looked at the pictures and everything, there was a certain cool energy to it. It was them in the studio, like, making the album, and a very simplistic, album cover with, the Van Halen rings on leather and stuff like that. Like, it's just a total package for me. And I always come back to this record, and, I think a testament to this, like we mentioned about right now, where Sammy just holds on to that song, is, on the Best of All Worlds tour, I should say, he played, I think, 5 songs off of this record, and it was by far the most well-represented Van Hagar record. And on the tour for this album, they played most of the record. And you guys both know, as musicians, that if a band plays most or all of if they play all the record, it's usually a concept record in almost all cases. But if it's not, and the band plays most of the record, that means they understand that they really put together an incredible piece of work, and the fans have received it as such. And it's just an excellent, excellent album. And I think, those two things, Sammy's current tour and the tour for this record when it came out, speak to that. And it's, just such an incredible record. And I think, so many fans go back to 5150. But I think if you really get into a deep conversation about things, from what I've found, they kind of go, oh yeah, and you know what? Wait a minute, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Like, so just a fucking great record. And a quick thank you to you, Paul, for mentioning this, because it's a record I've always wanted to talk about, to do a deep dive into, because it's very important to me, and I absolutely love it. So thanks for choosing it. So,
no problem.
So
Great
Brian,
fun,
it was a blast, man. Brian, your final thoughts on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge?
Yeah, man, great album. I think the older I get too, the more I realize you really need to listen to music with headphones, especially when it comes to Van Halen and everything Eddie's doing, all the way stuff, just the simplest things, stuff getting panned in stereo, all the little cool vocal parts. It's great to crank up Van Halen when you're, in your car driving down the highway too as well. But to really truly appreciate, the older I get, this, the nuances of a lot of these incredibly great albums, throw in your headphones, man, and just zone out for a while. And that's the true way to hear every last nuance and not miss anything. But they're still just all great. Turn roll the windows down, also cruise around. That's my thoughts.
Paul, we'll get your final thoughts, and then, like I said, we'll put you in the green room, and we'll talk to you a little bit after we go off air, man.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much what everyone else was saying. It's timeless for me. It hasn't got dated sounding at all. It's still fresh. It's still huge. Great production with great songs. Band absolutely on the top of their game. What's not to love? I was actually going to mention the picture behind both of you, actually, because I always thought it was the coolest. They started to really look. Sammy had grown out of that silly haircut behind Brian. He started to look really cool. Between then and the balance period, it was great. And it added to that mysticism of 5150, the studio, where they hung out. And as we mentioned earlier, they did a lot of these writing sessions and perfected these tunes together. And when you hear the complexities of things like Pleasure Dome, etc., you can see where that magic's come from, those writing sessions of perfecting it. And these were probably endless jams that they've managed to create these monsters. So change days to the kind of world that we all live in now, where we're writing remotely together. It's one thing that as a musician, I'm extremely jealous of bands like Van Halen back in the day, and Dream Theater buggering off to a barn and for 3 months and writing an album. What an amazing experience that would be, and the creativity that would flow. So I think you really hear it on this record as well. And as I said, it's my go-to, certainly on the Van Hager side of things. It would probably be within my top 3 Van Halen albums ever. Remember, I got into the Van Halen, for those that joined late, I got into Van Halen on this album. It was the first thing, really. Don't get me wrong, I'd heard all of the singles, I'd heard enough of the major songs of them, but this was truly the one that made me go, wow, where have they been all my life? So a whole lot of weight. I think it's still a killer album, and not a filler. That was a word I couldn't remember earlier. Not a filler, in my opinion.
Completely agree, man. Completely agree.
And look from this. Back to that, what happened? Well, actually, that's a wig that I've got on, but I had hair under it. There you go.
Well, Brian was mentioning that video for Judgment Day. You guys doing Judgment Day, the Eden's Curse tune, and he had sent it over right before we went live, and I watched like a bit of it. I was like, yeah, look, Paul with hair, man, check it out. Like, I was like, it looks great, man, looks great. So, well, as always, Paul, thank you so much for jumping on the show, man. It is always a blast to have you on. I personally, I love having you on because Brian, it's awesome to bounce stuff off of him when we do our deep dives, but he knows so much more actual musical, technical stuff than I do. And so when you come on, like you guys can kind of talk the technical side. It's fascinating for me. So, much appreciated, man. JG3 says, thanks, Paul. So he's glad to see you again. I know there's been a lot of that. So, there it is. Did you do that too? Man, I was taking pictures last night at my gig, and I couldn't help it. I was like,
So actually, I think I've shown you this before, the Eden's Curse bass, which is kind of like it's like it actually needs a repair just now. It's going into my roadie this week to get repaired, but it's kind of a play on the Queensryche guitar.
Yeah.
But this was the middle of our logo, and I always felt that the Van Halen sign looked not too dissimilar to that as well. So I used to do that at the end of our shows, and I never got anybody ever saying, "Hey, that's Hagar's hand signal." Nobody ever picked up on that. So there you go.
So okay, Kel McLeish also says, "Paul, thanks for a great time." So yeah, man.
Thanks,
as always, thanks, man. Like I said, we'll put you in the green room and talk to you in a couple minutes here. But once again, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on. And as I said earlier, thank you for asking to talk Van Halen, because I will talk Van Halen anytime I can. So if someone asks me to do, I'm like, yes, we got a show. Like, let's go, dude.
Well,
So
thanks as always to your listeners. A lot of great comments, and it was educational for me. I learned a lot tonight about things of Eddie using a bass string here, and Andy Johns and Ted Templeman and Wolfie's birthday. So yeah, great fun, great fun.
awesome.
I'm
All right,
now,
man, we'll talk.
I'm now going to go away and let's watch this live DVD tonight. I'm going to break that news to the wife.
It's so good, man. It's
I
so
haven't
good.
watched
So
it for a while, so good excuse to pull it out.
perfect. Nice. All right, we'll talk to you in just a couple minutes, man. So thank you very much, dude. We'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right, man. So let's close up shop here. Dude, Paul is always fucking great, man. It's like I said to him, and I'll say it again. Just his insight is excellent because he is a phenomenal songwriter, phenomenal musician, and so it's always great, because you bring that to the show, as well. You're a phenomenal musician and stuff, and like to have that actual musical insight instead of just being someone like me going, oh, this song kicks ass because I like it. Like it's nice to hear what went into the musicianship of side of things. And so appreciate you always throwing that out there, man, and appreciate you letting me kind of indulge myself here on the show and do 2.5 hours on one of my favorite Van Halen records, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, let's be clear. Don't put me in the category of Paul phenomenal musician wise. I can't even hold his bass guitar strings. I definitely can't change them because I don't know how, and I probably can't carry his bass guitar for him. But yeah, one of the most accomplished producer, musician kind of people we've met. Great songwriter, and more importantly, a great guy. And we appreciate so much. Because he definitely has, something better to do with 2 hours and 42 minutes of his time to come on with us idiots. But yeah, dude, anytime you want to talk Van Halen, me, I'll probably be along for the ride because I enjoy the band just as much as you. I don't delve into the historical part of it all quite as much, but I've read some of the books and whatnot. And we had was it Steve Rosen? His name?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had him on here, so it was great finding out that, and that read was a great read too as well.
Yep.
But yeah, man, and looking forward to the rest of 2025. We're trying to figure out some great shows, maybe some different twists on some things. We're we got some stuff boiling in the background, and we'll let you guys know when it's happening.
I do know that our next episode is going to be, it will be actually next week. It'll be on Thursday, January 9th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The topic is going to be why Chris Aiken is a huge asshole. So
let's just get that out of the way now.
Yeah. He posted in the chat about 17 minutes per song. Nice work. It's a Dream Theater podcast, dickhead. It has to be long per song. Get with come on, man.
Let's be fair, Chris. Only 15.5 minutes per song of that was John, though. So let's not.
Right. So, all right, guys. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Talking Into Infinity, a Dream Theater-centric podcast. Many, many thanks again. Go out to Paul Logue for jumping on with us. I'm sure he'll be on in the future several times. We'll be right back here this coming Thursday, January 9th. At 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at all of our usual locations. Once again, guys, if you are watching on YouTube and have not done so already, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so that you're notified every time that we go live. Again, can't thank you guys enough for all the support. The fan hangout was great. This was great. And as Brian said, what a kick-ass start to 2025. So we'll see you guys this coming Thursday. As always, I am your host, John. He is Brian, and we'll catch you on Thursday, and Carpe Diem.